Chapter 152. Sir, why are you in such a hurry to build the 4 workshops? I want to see the results soon. In the open space of the workshop area, Liszt led Dosen to inspect the construction of the workshop. Gort, who presided over the construction, was puzzled. Just this morning, Liszt issued a new order to completely build the 4 workshops within 5 days. For this reason, he had to summon more serfs to participate in the construction. The whole construction site was in full swing. Now that it was autumn, the temperature was gradually not as hot as it was in summer, but they were still sweating when working. Tell the construction workers that as long as the construction is completed within 5 days, their salary will be doubled, and if the construction is completed within 4 days, their salary will be tripled. Liszt didn't care about a few copper coins, he only cared about whether he could complete the task ahead of time. "Oh my God, the serfs will go crazy!" Gort exclaimed and then spread his hands. "But it is impossible to build the workshops in 4 days. Workshops are not wooden houses, they need skilled people to build them." Liszt said indifferently, "Then make it simple, as long as it can be produced. I don't expect the workshops to bring me much revenue. It's good enough that they can guarantee the supply to the castle." The level of the serfs could not be overestimated. But the serfs' pursuit of money should not be underestimated. If they went crazy, they could work day and night and toss the 4 workshops out. The quality might not be guaranteed, but Liszt did not pursue quality, he only pursued speed. Even if the defective workshops were built, it didn't matter as long as the task was completed. Compared to the evolution of the Thorn's sprite worm, these were secondary. Gort did not understand Liszt's thoughts, but he was only an advisor, and all the power in the territory was given by Liszt. He could only accept it. "I will stimulate these serfs. I can't guarantee 4 days, but within 5 days, there will definitely be 4 workshops appearing in the workshop area. After completing this task, Advisor Gort, I will reward you with a few bottles of gin, which can be purchased directly from Tulip Castle for cellar aging." "Oh my God, cellar gin, it's so mouth-watering. I haven't drunk Tulip Castle cellar gin for several years. Haha, I will not sleep or rest for the next few days to supervise the workshop. Please rest assured, sir." He corrected the attitude of the officials and the workers. Liszt then held Dosen's hand and walked back. Halfway there, he simply rode on Dosen's back and treated Dosen as a mount. During this period of time, Dosen's body continued to grow and had already exceeded a ton in weight. In front of Dosen, a tiger could only be regarded as a slightly larger cat. The explosive power contained in his body could tear tigers and leopards apart. Even without using magic, it could stand at the top of the Coral Islands food chain. At first, it was a little unwilling when Liszt rode it, but after being beaten up, it obediently became a mount. Carrying a person on its back didn't affect its movements at all. After arriving at Dosen Avenue, Liszt shouted, "Dosen, multiple rock spikes." Trembling Woods opened his mouth and let out a roar. Following that, 7 thick rock spikes emerged from the section of the road that had been planned and had yet to be constructed. "Good boy." Stroking Dosen's big head, Liszt was very satisfied and continued to issue instructions. "Keep going, Dosen, multiple rock spikes." Another 6 rock spikes pierced the ground. "Good job, little guy, come, rock spikes." A single rock spike was thrust out. Dosen could already understand the difference between rock spikes and multiple rock spikes. A piece of jerky as a reward. Liszt rubbed Dosen's chubby neck and continued to train. "Dosen, bigger, bigger, rock spikes." A rock spike emerged. "Bigger, rock spikes." Another rock spike popped up. "Not qualified, Dosen, no jerky reward." "Bigger, bigger, you get jerky, understand?" Liszt shook the jerky in front of Dosen, but didn't give it to let it understand that it was not good enough. Bit by bit. When the rock spike became thicker, Liszt stuffed the jerky into its mouth and repeated the instruction, "Bigger, rock spikes," indicating that the bigger the rock spike, the jerky reward. Dosen's IQ was not low, but because of the language barrier, it could only use conditional reflex to let it understand various instructions. This kind of training was repetitive and boring. But when Dosen understood the new instructions, List would feel a sense of accomplishment, and his ultimate goal was to train Dosen to release more types of magic. Dosen is an intermediate World of Warcraft, no doubt, but it is still a little worse than the purple sand crocodile. As an evolved intermediate World of Warcraft, its aptitude is definitely worse than the innate intermediate World of Warcraft. How to make up for it depends on how I, its master, train it and use skills to make up for its talent. List enjoyed personally training the powerful intermediate World of Warcraft. However, the road repair team following behind him was not so happy. With the rise of Dosen's magic power and the mass production of rock spikes, the workload of the road repair team also greatly increased. The hammer kept pounding, smashing the rock spikes and laying them flat on Dosen Avenue. This was a very difficult task because List required that each piece of gravel should not exceed the size of a bottle cap. The serfs responsible for the gravel needed to keep pounding and even smash the stone into powder. Only in this way the road built would be smooth. Looking at the serfs of the road repair team, sweat mixed with dust dripping down, List felt a little emotional compared to them. He was too leisurely. Reincarnation was a technical job, and obviously, his skills were good. Let Mrs. Abby prepare mung bean soup and send it to the serfs of the road repair team, 1 bowl per person. Seeing the butler Carter coming over, List ordered. They will be flattered by your kindness. As long as they work well for me, I will never be stingy with rewards and bestowment. In Flower Town, I hope that everyone can support themselves with work, eat their fill and wear warm clothes. Even if winter comes, they can still live a healthy life. List said dignified words. His vision was advanced. Squeezing the serfs was very low-level exploitation. Only by mobilizing the serfs' enthusiasm for production could they maximize the exploitation of laborers and obtain more surplus value. He was a man who had read Karl Marx's Das Kapital. As for the capitalist's conscience, wasn't mung bean soup delivered? What else could he do? With so many people building a road, the wages were not in arrears and they only worked 12 hours a day, which was already very kind. If it was another lord, perhaps the serfs could only learn from Su Sanduo and pick up stones to build the road without spending a penny. Writing Dosen. Chapter 153. After List left, the serfs who were working hard whispered to each other. Sir Lord's pet is too powerful, I don't even dare to look at it. When it roars, my whole body trembles. A serf looked at the distant figure of the flying dust dog and exclaimed. Of course, the flying dust dog is the king of the Thorns Ridge, only the great Sir Lord can tame it. Yes, his lordship is a noble blessed by the night's glory. He can subdue any World of Warcraft with a single strike of his sword. This winter, we won't have to worry about World of Warcraft eating people. The Thorns Ridge, I didn't expect us to cut down all the trees in the Thorns Ridge. It's a pity that my family doesn't have enough people and tools. Otherwise, I would have reclaimed 10 more acres of wasteland this year. The town officials said that the more fields we plant, the more food we can save. My son will be of marriageable age next year. I have to prepare food and a house for him, otherwise he won't be able to find a wife. Hey, Old Brown, has your son found a girl who is willing to be with him? Of course, I asked Captain Grandet of the Flower Caravan. He promised me to find a girl who speaks whispery for my son. Oh right, one with a big butt. They are the new serfs that Sir Lord bought. I heard that they are from the Eagle Kingdom, right? Only the Eagle Kingdom speaks Wind Tongue. However, this is Coral Island. Sir Lord will let them speak Serpentines. By the way, Old Brown, why don't you find one? Among the newly bought serfs, there are several older women who can form a pair with you and help you with housework and work in the field. Old Brown smiled embarrassedly. Hee hee, I'm looking for it. The women of the continent can't speak Serpentine. When Old Brown married them, the two of them could only gesture. As long as I'm lying on the bed, it doesn't matter if I can speak or not. It's fine as long as I can move. Ha ha. Old Brown's good days are here. Praise the Overlord. Praise be to Sir Lord, the Flower Town is getting better and better. The serfs' thoughts were very simple. Their lives were better than before, and it was all because of the Sir Lord. They had to praise the Sir Lord, farm more and work more. Walls and cages. After losing her freedom, Stupid Woman lived in this narrow world. From the initial resistance to the gradual acceptance, now that Dosen had come to visit, it was the happiest and most exciting moment for it. Vaguely, it had grown fond of such peaceful days. Every day it would eat, sleep, and eat. Occasionally, it would get up to mate and enjoy Dosen's violent thrusts. Woof woof. Dosen's voice came closer and closer. Stupid Woman, who was sleeping on the ground, immediately got up, came to the edge of the cage, and responded with a bark. Woof woof. A moment later, the gate of the wall was opened and the two flying dust dogs met each other. List was still riding on Dosen's back, leisurely approaching the cage, which was within the range of Stupid Woman's magic. Stupid Woman did not release her magic. She had almost forgotten about the rock thorns. The training of its conditioned reflexes was very simple. Release the magic, take the food. After a few days, Stupid Woman had the impression that every time she released her magic, she had to go hungry. If I don't use my magic, the food will appear. So, she no longer released her magic. Beast instinct told her that eating was far more important than magic. However, List dared to approach Stupid Woman with his magic eye. The castle servants who fed Stupid Woman did not dare to come in. They moved the cage and let Dosen enter the cage to meet Stupid Woman. Originally, the mating session should have gone smoothly, but there was a problem. Stupid Woman could accept Dosen's intimacy, but she resisted and forbade Dosen from sprinting. List had a flash of inspiration. Is Stupid Woman pregnant? Pregnant female beasts would resist mating. Of course, female beasts that were not in heat would also resist mating. It was just that Stupid Woman should be in heat, and she did not resist mating too much before. In any case, since Stupid Woman resisted, it meant that she was either out of heat or pregnant, and was no longer suitable for forced mating. Some time ago, Dosen came to mate every day, but he did not make Stupid Woman pregnant because Stupid Woman was not in heat. Heat involves ovulation. How could she get pregnant without eggs? Dosen, come out. List knocked on the cage. Dosen did not want to come out. He urged him several times before reluctantly coming out. It seems that I have to go to Coral City to find some female wolfhounds and buy them back. Otherwise, Dosen's exuberant energy will not be able to be released. Blindly holding back without reasonable guidance is not conducive to healthy development. I just don't know if Dosen and the wolfhounds can give birth. Thinking about it this way, he was quite looking forward to it. Maybe it could give birth to a batch of magical beast wolf dogs with the bloodline of magical beasts, just like the fire dragon horse. Trembling Woods is a mid-level magical beast. Its bloodline is even stronger. The magical beast dogs born from its mixed blood will definitely be very strong. If they are selected and raised for a long time, they may become a good breed of hunting dogs or working dogs. If it's really possible, then build a kennel and train a wolf dog army. While he was daydreaming, the servant quickly reported, "Master, the mage of Coral City followed the flower caravan to the castle. Let's go back." List turned around and rode Dosen back to the castle. The flower caravan was unloading the goods and moving them into the castle cellar. Another carriage was parked on Dosen Avenue. A tall, thin man in a black cloak stood in front of the carriage, looking at the town not far away. There was also a thin boy in a cloak beside him. It was the mage Glanny Truth and his magic apprentice. "Mr. Glanny, welcome to Flower Town. Although List was not satisfied with the late mage, he still had a standard aristocratic smile on his face. Glanny lifted the cloak on his head, revealing his messy brown hair. The road in Flower Town is good. It turned out to be a stone road. I thought it would be a mud road. Baron List, building a stone road costs a lot of gold coins. Even if aristocrats need to be dignified, why waste it on a road? While speaking, his eyes were looking at Dosen. The current Trembling Woods was the focus of attention wherever he went. His huge body and mighty aura were extremely eye-catching. Tsk, what a good flying dust dog. It is extraordinary, worthy of being the king of Thorn's Ridge. It is far better than a low-level world of Warcraft. It is your luck to have it. No, it is its luck to follow me. List gestured with his hand. Let's talk inside the castle. Mr. Carter has prepared tea and drinks. Glanny did not move, still looking straight at Dosen. Baron List, I wonder if I have the honor to study this flying dust dog? Perhaps I can buy it. You should know that the value of a World of Warcraft lies in what kind of magic equipment it can make. Chapter 154. He wanted to buy Dosen. He wanted to make Dosen into a magic equipment. List felt that he should let go of Dosen's leash and let it teach Glanny how to behave. Intermediate World of Warcraft was not something that a wizard could touch. In the castle's living room, the host and the guest sat down. Perhaps it was the reputation of being a hermit, or perhaps it was because magic was more impressive, but the status of wizards in society was still quite high. They belonged to the upper middle class and were qualified to enter the castle's second floor. Is this the famous ice cream of Tulip Castle? It is said that it was invented by you? When the servant brought the ice cream, Glanny was immediately attracted by the different colors of the ice cream. Ice cream was a high-end food. A lot of ice cream was used to make a small amount of ice cream, which ordinary people could not afford. Glanny had only heard of it but had never tasted it. Try it. In the entire Coral Island, apart from Flower Town, only Tulip Castle, Falcon Town, Beer Castle, and Gravel Castle can eat this frozen delicacy. List had sold the recipe to 4 people: Levis, Ulvera, Aubrey Wildgrass, and Brandon Gravel. The other aristocrats wanted to buy it, but were reluctant to spend money. Glanny picked up the cup and took a sip. Is this natural ice? It's not made by magic. Interesting. How is it made? The recipe for ice cream is worth a lot. I don't need the recipe for ice cream. I want to know, where does the ice come from? Baron List, don't tell me that your castle is so small that there is an ice cellar underground. Making ice with saltpeter itself was not something worth keeping secret. But the tone of Glanny's question made List uncomfortable, so he responded faintly, Mr. Glanny, I invited you to Flower Town to make equipment for me and teach me magic knowledge, not me to teach you knowledge. I hope you can straighten out your thinking. Glanny scooped a mouthful of ice cream without any self-awareness. It is the nature of us wizards to seek the truth. The weather is still hot, and it is difficult to even cast ice magic, let alone use natural means to make ice. This is a major discovery. I hope you can teach me. Imparting knowledge costs money, Yifutian said. How much? Glanny's attitude showed that he was willing to buy information with gold coins in order to know how to make ice with saltpeter. List rolled his eyes and an idea popped up. I'm not short of gold coins. If you want to know how I make ice, it's very simple. Work hard for me during this period of time, and after you're done, I'll naturally tell you how to make ice. Glanny frowned. I hate working with doubts. So, under the premise of ensuring quality, finish the work as soon as possible, and you can get rid of your doubts as soon as possible. List said bluntly. He had figured out how to deal with wizards. There was no need to take anything into consideration and just directly berate them. This was the Flower Town, a place where wizards could not raise any wave. Alright, let's talk about work. Where are the black pearls that you need me to forge magic equipment for? Thomas, go get my black pearl. It's in the cabinet in the study. Just now, he went into the study, took out the black pearl the size of a basketball from the gem space, and stuffed it into the cabinet to deceive people. Thomas quickly carried the black pearl over. He put it on the table. This black pearl was not a regular circle. It was a bit crooked and did not look beautiful. But this was List's aesthetic. For Glanny, who had never seen a bigger black pearl, it was perfect. Incredible, incredible, the black pearl is incredible, but there really is such a big black pearl. He rubbed the black pearl with his hand. The abundant water magic makes me feel as if I'm on the sea. It must have been born in the deep sea. Oh, it also has a heavy aura of history. I feel that it has existed for hundreds of years. Do you think it can be made into a magic equipment to suppress storms? Of course, it's better than I thought. It's the best material for making magic equipment, but I'm afraid the materials I brought are not enough. I need to buy more materials. You're leaving? No, there's no need to leave. I'll write a letter and let Charlie buy it. There's just a lack of some auxiliary materials, but there's no shortage of core materials. Charlie was the thin magic apprentice. Glanny was still very nimble. He immediately got a pen and paper and began to write a letter. He wrote to his fellow magician and asked him to help purchase the materials. He then handed the letter to Charlie and told the flower caravan to take Charlie to Coral City. His fellow magician lived near Coral City. Baron List, I need an independent working space. It takes a long time to make magic equipment, especially with such excellent materials. There are many new houses in town. You can choose one. List stood up. I'll take you to town now to choose your room. Glanny didn't bring a horse, and he didn't even know how to ride. So he could only let the servant take him on horseback. They arrived at the town. Glanny's eyes did not stop looking. He saw a large open space, which was planned, including drainage channels, roadsides, and green belt. Although it had not been built, it had been divided into pieces. Some of the houses have been knocked down and replaced by neat rows of new houses. There were not many pedestrians. At this time, most of the farmers were carrying stones at the dock. Only a large number of serfs were busy in the workshop area. Here there's no feces? He looked for a long time before he was surprised. Flower Town prohibits urination and defecation. There are toilets built here. All residents have to go to the toilet. Gort, who had just arrived, answered, Mr. Glanny, long time no see. I hope you like Flower Town. The environment here is more beautiful than Coral City. I have to admit that the streets are clean, but compared to the prosperity of Coral City, this place is too remote. It depends on how you define it. There are no brothels, casinos, or taverns in Flower Town. Life is more peaceful. After all, Flower Town is just a small town. Gort shrugged his shoulders. Get used to its tranquility and you will definitely fall in love with it. Of course, the idle nights are really hard to bear. Freya was more than 4 months pregnant. She couldn't do that. Gort's nightlife could only be done with his hands. List had to exhort, treat Freya well, consultant Gort. If he didn't exhort, maybe this guy would go and hook up with some small-town girl. Gort smiled, of course. He walked back and forth in the town. Glanny didn't choose a house here. My work needs quiet, Baron List. The noise of building a house in a small town is too noisy and not suitable. Please provide me with a more remote house. He liked the bustling city, but his work needed quiet, so he lived in seclusion in the Broken Moss town. In that case, consultant Gort, choose a separate house for Glanny among the new houses in the wheat settlement as his residence and studio. Chapter 155. A carriage of materials and utensils were moved to the new house, and Glanny Truth lived in Flower Town. At lunchtime, List entertained Glanny in the castle. The town's aristocrats and quasi-aristocrats were gathered, but the atmosphere of the banquet was sloppy. The mage was not as unreasonable as List thought. Of course, it was definitely not a lively conversation. Most of the time, it was Gort and the others who were enjoying themselves, while Glanny just ate and drank. He was more like a creature immersed in himself. There were not enough materials to make the black pearl. So after the banquet, starting in the afternoon, Glanny's work was mainly focused on teaching knowledge. He also had the task of making crystal lamps, but that required the cooperation of a crystal craftsman. Mages could not carve crystals. The flower caravan had invited the crystal craftsman, Brad. They would probably be able to invite him tomorrow or the day after if he was not busy. Magic is the same as Do-Chi, they are both forms of magic. Glanny did not beat around the bush and directly said, "The world is a triangle, matter is a corner, spirit is a corner, and magic is a corner. This is our understanding of the nature of the world, and it is also the source of magic. Specifically, the caster is the matter, the power of meditation is the spirit, and the combination of matter, spirit, and magic creates magic. So, what about a knight? As I said, magic is the same as chi. It is also magic, the caster, and the power of the spirit, creating a variety of chi secret. The difference between a mage and a knight is that a knight sees himself as a triangle, while a mage integrates himself into the big triangle of the world." As he spoke, he asked, "Do you understand?" List nodded. Triangles are the most stable structure. In fact, he didn't understand at all. What big triangles and small triangles, then? Glanny continued to talk about his triangle theory. Just like Taoism believes that the universe is divided into the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, Buddhism concludes that matter is divided into earth, water, fire, and wind. Mages believe that the world is divided into 3 parts: spirit, matter, and magic. It was a very broad understanding, but it was unknown whether it was correct or not. The content was very boring. Glanny was not a good teacher, and his talk was even more boring. The whole afternoon, he repeated the triangle theory over and over again, making List almost fall asleep several times. In the end, he could not help but interrupt, "Mr. Glanny, I already understand the theory of triangles, so I can skip it. What I wanted to know now was how magic was released, and why magic was divided into water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, ice, and darkness. Also, I want to see real magic." Glanny frowned. It is very disappointing to be interrupted in a long speech. Fortunately, he still knew that List was a financial backer, so he raised his left hand, spread his fingers slightly, and quickly rubbed a fireball. Fireballs appeared out of thin air, from small flames to fist-sized fireballs. With a push of his hand, the fireball flew out of the window of the castle and exploded in mid-air not far away. Fireball, the lowest level of fire magic. Play it again. List narrowed his eyes and cast Mana Eye. He wanted to observe carefully. He had observed World of Warcraft's magic. It was a magic that was condensed from the body's mana and released from the mouth. Glanny nodded. He raised his hand and rubbed another fireball. At this moment, List clearly saw that there was only a small amount of magic in Glanny's body. The chaos had no color. When he released the fireball, the magic in his palm quickly turned red and became fire magic. Then the red magic in the air was attracted by the magic in his palm and condensed into a fireball. Bang! The fireball burst outside the castle. In the field of vision of the magic eyes, the fire attribute magic suddenly drifted away, as if it had never appeared. He already knew the process of magic release. However, it was still not clear why it could condense into a fireball. Mana Eye could not see what force caused the magic to condense. Perhaps, as Glanny said, it was the power of the spirit. Just like himself, with a single thought, he could drive the chi in his body and operate it according to his thoughts. As for why it operated according to his thoughts, it was unclear. At this time, Glanny continued to rub his magic. Meditate and build a bridge between your spirit and magic power. His voice was a bit erratic, his eyes stared at his palm, and his whole person fell into a certain state. Magic is a third existence outside of matter and spirit. It has emotions, experience them, be intimate with them, and they can be used by you. Gradually, in his palm, a grayish-brown substance appeared, which was the soil composed of magic. The mud ball gradually grew, and his voice continued to drift. Meditation is a necessary step to build a bridge. Only when the spirit is in a calm state can you touch the existence of magic. They are everywhere, they cheer and jump. As long as you find them and establish friendship with them, you can get magic and then understand the world. Finally, the mud ball expanded to the size of a fist, and then gradually solidified, condensing into a rock with sharp edges and corners. Glanny did not stop and continued to release magic, compressing and solidifying the solidified rock again until the rock made a cracking sound. With a shake of his hand, the rock was completely broken. But unlike the previous fireball, the broken rock did not disappear, but still existed in the form of debris. Flying rock, earth magic, as low level as fireball. However, I can't master it very well. I'm good at water and fire magic, and I'm not proficient enough in wind and earth magic. What about lightning, ice, and darkness? I haven't studied these 4 types of magic, so I can't release them. But I heard that mages can master and release every type of magic. If I get closer to the truth and become a great mage, maybe I can have enough energy to study lightning, ice, and darkness magic. But I'm too far from the truth now, and my spirit is not broad enough. It's already very difficult to be proficient in water and fire magic. What kind of existence is a magic shooter? I don't know. You don't know? Glanny raised his head, his hooked nose pointing to the sky. A magic shooter is the embodiment of truth walking in the secular world, an existence that mages need to look up to. Baronly Siggy, why do you think I would understand a magic shooter? Even if it's you, do you know what kind of existence a dragon knight is? Liszt couldn't refute such a rhetorical question. He always thought that a dragon knight was probably a knight riding a dragon. However, the Sky Knight's high-level battle energy was a level above that of a dragon's battle energy, which was said to be shared with a dragon. As for what a dragon's battle energy was, among his relatives and friends, not only did the Count not know, but Marquis Merlin, the veteran Sky Knight, also did not know. All the noble knight had fantasized about becoming a dragon knight. However, a knight with a dragon was a high existence that ordinary people could not come into contact with. Even a king with a dragon, such as Sapphire Grand Duke, probably did not know what it was like to be a dragon knight. The original Sapphire Grand Duke was a dragon knight, but now the Sapphire Grand Duke was just a companion and keeper of the dragon. There was no chance to ride a dragon. Chapter 156. Are you talking about these residues? Glanny poured the rock fragments in his hand onto the table. They are just ordinary stone residues without the slightest magic power. So, why is that? Why don't magic power condensed rocks disappear? Glanny stirred the fragments on the table with his hand. Your question is too big, just like how dragons can produce gems and metals, and how elves can cultivate plants. It involves the essence of the world, and I can only tell you my understanding. Please speak. Spirit, matter, and magic power are a triangle. Of course, you have said it many times. It is not unchangeable. In other words, spirit and matter can have a dual impact on magic power. Spirit can influence magic power into matter, and matter can influence magic power into spirit. Spellcasters use their own spirit to create magic and form matter. Matter and magic power fuse to form. He paused before saying, Dragons and sprites, I think they come from this way. Liszt glanced at Glanny, a little surprised. This statement was quite new. Dragons and energy originated from the combination of magic power and matter. Without waiting for Liszt to ask his doubts, Glanny explained himself. This is just a guess, Baron List, not based on the truth. Therefore, forget it after hearing it. I won't admit that this saying came from me. Mages pursue the truth and abhor lies. List nodded. List did not dwell on it and change the subject. I have seen the birth of sprite worms many times, but I know nothing about the birth of dragons, do you know? I do not know about the birth of dragons, I am just a wizard, I have never even seen a dragon. Glanny's tone was not without regret. But I can recommend you a book, The Dragonlance Chronicles. The Dragons of Autumn, written by the great magic shooter Odom Truth. It has a very detailed introduction to dragons. Did you bring this book? No, in fact, I do not have this book. I only read it when I was young, when I was a magic apprentice with my teacher. That was my teacher's book collection. In order to find the truth and obtain more knowledge, he had already traveled to the continent. I have not seen him for many years. Without a book, List could only let Glanny recite the contents of the book for him. Naturally, Glanny wouldn't turn down the opportunity to earn money just by saying a few words. Thus, he began to recite the contents that he had written down. Young dragons that are less than 100 years old are the easiest to capture. It is said that most of the Dragon Knight's feelings for the dragons are nurtured when they are still young. Adult dragons between 100 and 800 years old are at the peak of producing gemstones and metal ores. Dragon blood, dragon feces, dragon saliva, dragon breath, dragon scales, and draconic might can infect the surroundings and form ores. After 800 years they would be old dragons. Most of the elderly dragons would leave their homes during this period of time and head for the Dragon Valley, a legendary place. Some say that the Dragon Valley is in the Devil's Sea, some say that it's in the Swirling Sea, and some say that it's in the Muragadan Mountain, but no one has ever seen it. It's a legendary place. Dragons bury themselves in the Dragon Valley. They will not die, they will only merge with the world, and after countless years, they will be reborn as dragons. There were 3 main types of dragons: elemental dragons, gem dragons, and metal dragons. Metal dragons could infect metal ores: gold, silver, copper, iron, and aluminum. There were a total of 23 types of metal dragons recorded in the Dragonlance Chronicles. Dragons of Autumn: brass dragon, bronze dragon, purple copper dragon, white copper dragon, white mouth iron dragon, maw-mouth iron dragon, grey mouth iron dragon, white heart iron dragon, black heart iron dragon, gold dragon, platinum dragon, silver dragon, mercury dragon. I can roughly remember these metal dragons. Gem dragons could infect gem ores, and they were roughly divided into 4 types: blue, red, yellow, and green. For example, sapphire dragons, ruby dragons, light sapphire dragons, dark red gem dragons, light green gem dragons, and so on. The gems produced by gem dragons all had extraordinary magic, and their value was higher than that of metal dragons, but in terms of production, they were not as high. Most elemental dragons were evil dragons, the incarnation of element. Fire dragons could infect volcanoes, water dragons could infect swamps, wind dragons stirred up storms, earth dragons raised mountains, and so on. High Mage Odom Truth once fought with a wind dragon. His blood splattered across the plains. Now that place is called the Howling Wind Valley. In the unsetting Light Empire, strong winds blow all year round and never stop. Countless mages who specialize in the wind element hope to see the Howling Wind Valley and feel the magic engraved by the Wind Dragon. List was interested. How many years ago did this happen? According to the time of Odom Truth's life, it should be 4,000 years. At that time, there was no unsetting Light Empire. The founding history of the unsetting Light Empire was only 3,000 years old. For 4,000 years, the magic of the Wind Dragon in the Howling Wind Valley has not dissipated? Yes, this is the power of dragons. They have the ability to change the world. Unfortunately, even magic shooters can't see through the mystery. Glanny shook his head, his regret overflowing. List was equally shocked. He had read a lot of night novels that described dragons, and those were obviously made up at first glance. The dragon's ability was described as god of creation, but its IQ was only equivalent to that of a puppy. The authenticity of the records left by magic shooters would be very high. The magic of the wind dragon had not dissipated for 4,000 years. Such a situation made him dazzled, and he couldn't wait to run to the Howling Wind Valley and observe for himself with magic eyes to see what was different about the magic of the wind dragon. After a while, his eyes flickered slightly, and he asked in a casual tone, "Mr. Glanny, I have read in the night novels that some novelists wrote that in addition to elements, metals, and gems, there is another category of dragons called the sacred dragon? I have also heard of the sacred dragon, but there is no record in the Dragon Spear Chronicles. The dragon of late autumn. That's just the nonsense of the novelist. I don't like to read night novels. They are all fabricated, contrary to the truth, lies." When it came to night novels, Glanny was dismissive. "Can you talk about the sacred dragon? I have only seen one in the books, the invisible dragon. Those people made up the sacred dragon, saying that there are 5 kinds. Although Glanny despised the night novels, he obviously read a lot and was very knowledgeable. "The fairy dragon represents life. If you get it, you will have eternal life. It is very fake. The dusk dragon represents time. It can stop time. I don't know what this is for. The emerald dragon represents dreams. It can sneak into dreams. I have seen emerald. It is a kind of jade. What does it have to do with dragons?" As he spoke, he despised it. Liszt listened very carefully. "The invisible dragon represents space. It can produce space rings. It is the kind of ring that can hold many things. However, this is as ridiculous as my cup can hold an elephant. There is also the last one, the smoke dragon represents fate. In the night novels I have read, it is said that it is a cloud of smoke. I think the imagination is good." After talking about the 5 kinds of sacred dragons, Glanny concluded with contempt. "No one has ever seen a sacred dragon with their own eyes, and no country has such a dragon. This is just made up by those who have never seen a dragon when they dream at night. There is nothing more to say. Let's continue talking about magic." "Okay." Liszt responded absent-mindedly. However, in his mind, there was already a monstrous storm. The smoke dragon represents fate. A cloud of smoke. Chapter 157. 7 months ago. Liszt woke up from the darkness, understood his situation, and accepted the memory of his predecessor, knowing that he could see smoke when he was very young. But at that time, the smoke was very thin and could not be seen clearly. It was not until he crossed over and merged with this body that he could see the composition of the smoke. It turned out to be a task in the form of text. When he saw the content, he was really shocked. If this was a cheat, the smoke formed serpentines instead of Chinese characters. If this was not a cheat, the language style and the content of the task were familiar to him from Earth. He could only convince himself that the transmigrator did not move, but the cheat moved first. Then he accepted the existence of the smoke task and guessed that there must be a dark hand or conspiracy behind the scenes. However, this time, when he heard Glanny introduce the 5 kinds of sacred dragons, there was unexpectedly a smoke dragon that represented fate. This gave him a huge shock. Perhaps my cheat, this smoke task, is not some kind of conspiracy? There was no indication that the smoke task had any intention or drove him to carry out some kind of arrangement. From beginning to end, the smoke task was just a simple task. Then he would be rewarded with something that existed but was easily missed. This kind of reward. Thinking about it carefully, it had a strong color of fate. Whether it was passing by or hugging, it was a different trajectory of fate. Ordinary people could not change the trajectory of fate, or rather, their trajectory of fate was unknown and disorderly. But with the smoke task, Liszt's trajectory of fate had an extra choice. Glanny was still next to him, talking about magic. Liszt had entered his inner world. He lowered his head and looked at his body. Represents fate, a cloud of smoke. Could it be that there is a smoke dragon living in my body? Because of the smoke dragon's infection, I can get the right to choose my fate? It was different from Glanny's denial of the sacred dragon. He believed that sacred dragons absolutely existed. The invisible dragon ate 2 cows in front of him and left behind a space gem. This was an undeniable fact. Since the invisible dragon existed, why couldn't the smoke dragon exist? The fairy dragon, the dusky dragon, and the emerald dragon definitely existed. They might be extraordinary to the point of being incredible, but dragons and sprites were incredible creatures. So what if they were incredible? This was a world completely different from Earth, an extraordinary world full of magic. His thoughts continued to wander. He tried to find traces of the smoke dragon. It's not impossible for the smoke dragon to live in my body. After all, I often see smoke missions, but this smoke can only form serpentines. It has never formed the shape of a dragon, nor has it had any communication with me. It's very likely that I didn't obtain it, but was just affected by it. Ordinary animals can be infected by a dragon. Although humans have never had a dragon, it's hard to say if my predecessor was accidentally infected by a smoke dragon and became a smoke person when he was young. Thinking so, he didn't know whether he should feel lucky or regretful. Fortunately, it was rare for others to see a dragon, but he had come into contact with 2 dragons, and each of them left valuable gifts: the smoke that could control fate, and the gem space that had a unique world. Unfortunately, the intimate contact between the 2 dragons did not make him a dragon knight, nor did he gain the friendship of the dragons. Baron Liszt! Baron Liszt! Glanny's shout snapped Liszt out of his daze. What? I'm introducing magic, are you listening carefully? Glanny was very unhappy. Learning magic requires concentration. On the road to pursuing the truth, although lonely and boring, the joy of gaining knowledge can make your mind go from emptiness to fullness. Sorry, I just want to know about magic, I don't want to learn it. Liszt suppressed his messy thoughts and squeezed out a stylized smile. I didn't take a nap, so I'm a little listless. Let's end today's teaching here and continue tomorrow. Thomas, take Mr. Glanny around and visit Flower Town. Yes, master. Thomas stretched out his hand in a gentlemanly manner. Mr. Glanny, this way please. Glanny glanced at Liszt, showing a look of disgust. The truth is getting further and further away from you. After that, he strode out of the castle. After Glanny left, Liszt stayed alone in the study, looking out of the window and pondering while listening to Blessed Curl's quack, quack sounds. Smoke dragon. Smoke mission. Fate. Many thoughts flashed back and forth. The smoke in front of him twisted and changed, but the text remained the same. Mission. The Flower Town's business district is gradually flourishing, but the workshop area has been idle for a long time. There are not enough workshops to support it. How can craftsmen be wasted on cutting down trees and farming? Please build 3 new workshops to increase the prosperity of the town. Reward, Chi Bottleneck. No matter how he tried to communicate with the smoke dragon behind the smoke, the content of the serpentines did not change. He could not communicate with the smoke dragon that existed or did not exist in his body. He could not change the smoke mission. The so-called choice of fate was just one more choice. It was like building a road in a scenic area. You could choose to build a straight road from the front door to the back door. The smoke mission would prompt you where there was a scenic spot. You could make a turn and enter the scenic spot. As for repairing a toilet or a parking lot, sorry, there was no such function. So now, there are 4 possibilities for what happened to me. First, he had close contact with the smoke dragon when he was a child. He was influenced by the smoke dragon and became a smoke dragon with the ability to choose part of fate. Second, the smoke dragon was hiding somewhere in his body and sleeping. The smoke formed a smoke mission, allowing List to steal part of his fate. Third, the smoke dragon might be just a young dragon with weak abilities, hiding and waiting for growth. Fourth, he thought too much. The smoke mission had nothing to do with the smoke dragon. It was just a golden finger benefit for a transmigrator. 1, 2, 3, 4 scenarios were all possible, but there was too little information to tell which was more likely. He tried to recall the memories of his predecessor when he was a child, trying to find a node, the node where he had close contact with the smoke dragon. There was a great possibility that he had been in contact with the smoke dragon. From the beginning of my memory, my predecessor had not been to many places. Red Crab Island was one. He had only been around the Longtaro Castle, and the rest was in the Coral Island. He had been to all the cities of the Coral Island. Every year, he would go on vacation with the Count and stay in the castles of the cities for a few days. There were no waves. The ordinary life of the second son of an aristocrat had always been uneventful. Half an hour later, he gave up on recalling. He also gave up on pondering. Forget it, since I am here, I will take things as they come. If I am fated with the smoke dragon, one day I will be honest. I will do what I have to do and let fate decide the rest. If it is really the smoke dragon that represents fate, I believe it is predestined. List stretched. Chapter 158. In the following 2 or 3 days, List's schedule was full. In the morning, he trained Dosen, supervised the workshop, and in the afternoon, he studied magic, mainly the magic that Glanny had mastered. This mage was proficient in fire and water magic, and had a slight understanding of wind and earth magic. He did not understand lightning, ice, or darkness magic at all. The difficulty of practicing magic is far greater than practicing qi. The steps of magic are meditation, model, rune, and release. Meditation, mobilize spiritual power to communicate magic. Model, mobilize the magic to form a bridge between the magic inside and outside the body. Rune, use the magic inside the body to repair the details of the bridge and strengthen the channel for magic to enter and exit. Release, complete the bridge, strengthen the channel, and guide the spiritual power to release the magic. Every magic has a fixed model and rune, and it takes time to master. For example, I can instantly cast Fireball and Water Arrow, which means that after thousands of casts, the details of the magic are completely engraved in my body and brain, and then I can naturally release them. But for Earth Element Flying Rock and Wind Element Windblade, I have to spend time to continuously modify the model and add runes to successfully release them. I have mastered many kinds of magic that need to be kept secret, so I can only show you Fireball, Water Arrow, Flying Rock, and Windblade. Every mage is a forger of magic equipment. In fact, the reason is very simple. Creating magic equipment is to carve a casting model. The core material itself can be seen as a rough casting model, and the supplementary materials are the runes to make up for the model. Also, the materials on World of Warcraft are very good sources of runes. Your flying dust dog is very extraordinary. I dare to bet that if I kill it and add it to the Black Pearl, I can even create an excellent magic equipment comparable to Little Elf Soldier. Glanny's eyes lit up as he said this. Little Elf Soldier was more precious than gemstone weapons. As the name suggests, Little Elf Soldier was a weapon made from little elves. When the blood of little elves soaked the weapon, it could give the weapon magical power. Although the major kingdoms had enacted laws to prohibit the killing of little elves were used to make weapons. After all, some little elves were not very useful for agricultural production. Don't mention things like little elf soldiers anymore. List abhorred this. Elves were beautiful things and should not be treated like this. Also, don't have any ideas about Dosen. Otherwise, I don't mind letting Dosen have intimate contact with you. Glanny squinted at List, his eyes filled with contempt. Perhaps thinking that List was very hypocritical, many nobles said that it was forbidden to kill elves, but secretly used useless elves to forge elven weapons. Not only small elven soldiers, but also large elven soldiers, and even dragon elven soldiers. He licked his lips. You mean, you're willing to let me study that flying dust dog, Dosen? Glanny, I advise you not to think like that. Dosen is very dangerous. World of Warcraft is dangerous. It is particularly dangerous, List faintly warned. After the work was done, if the other party still did not give up, he did not mind letting Dosen freely play. Let's talk about the Black Pearl first. I hope that you can design a control device during the manufacturing process so that it can be switched on and off freely. If the Black Pearl had been suppressing the storm, it was obvious that it would not be possible to rely on the ores alone. Usually, when there was no big storm, the effect of the Black Pearl would be sealed, and when there was a storm, the seal would be lifted. Glanny thought for a moment. No problem, it's very simple. I already have enough ideas to make a top-quality magic equipment. In fact, I can't wait. If you give me another Dosen, the Black Pearl will be even better. After going around in circles, he returned to the topic. List picked up the cold drink on the table and ignored him. Glanny waited for a moment, and seeing the awkward silence, he said again. I saw a wall over at the castle, and inside it is also a flying dust dog. It can also be used. Impossible! Then, what about the chirping World of Warcraft? It should be a winged peregrine falcon. It can barely be tried. Blessed curls? List's refusal was on the tip of his tongue when he suddenly stopped. Blessed Curls did not know how to train it, and previously planned to train on an empty stomach. But after all, it was a bird. If he let it go, it would immediately fly away, so this method would not work. Since he couldn't find a falconer, Blessed Curls could only stay in the castle and watch, and before it could learn Windblade, he could kill it and eat its meat. Do you know any falconers? You want to tame it? I picked this winged peregrine falcon from an egg. It can recognize people, but it lacks training. It can't even release magic. It's best to kill it. With World of Warcraft materials as runes, it can better assist the Black Pearl in suppressing the storm. I want to know, do you know any falconers? Glanny was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. I know one, but I still suggest you kill it and use it as an auxiliary material for the Black Pearl. Under List's repeated questioning, he finally said the name of the falconer, Elk Sun Truth, another mage living in Coral City. He knew of the existence of the falconer. List was eager to invite the other party, so he forced the reluctant Glanny to write an invitation letter. The two mages knew each other. The fate of Blessed Curls has taken a turn for the better. He was in a good mood. All that was left was to see when Elkson Truth would come over. When the letter was sent, the crystal craftsman Brad came to Flower Town and cooperated with Glanny to carve the crystal lamp. On the same night, the fourth night of the workshop's construction, Gort rode to the castle and reported to List, Sir, the workshop has been completed. Very good, it took 4 days to complete, exceeding expectations. Advisor Gort, according to what I said, the serfs who work will be paid 3 times the salary. As you wish. Do you want to inspect the workshop in person? No need. List didn't have time to inspect. He had already begun to call for the smoke mission. Mission completed, reward. Chi bottleneck. No matter how many candles are lit, the swaying flame will hurt the eyes. Since you are used to staying up late, you need to take care of yourself. Find a new stable light source. Please install 10 crystal lamps for the castle. Reward. A variant type of thorns. The mission was completed, and a new mission appeared. It was the chain mission he was looking forward to. Variant thorns again. It seems that I was very prescient not to cut off the fast-growing thorns. List's mouth curved. Every time he completed the Thorns Worm chain mission, it increased the probability of the Thorns Worm evolving into a sprite. 10 crystal lamps, purely a welfare mission. I have to go back and urge Glanny and Brad to complete the crystal lamps as soon as possible. Immediately. List's attention shifted to himself. When will the chi bottleneck come? I don't seem to have touched the bottleneck yet. The chi in my body is still growing slowly. After a moment, he called the butler Carter. Mr. Carter, for tonight's supper, let Mrs. Abby cook a batch of World of Warcraft steak. I am a little hungry. Chapter 159. He didn't know if it was because he ate too much World of Warcraft meat at once. He was holding on. At night, he tossed and turned but couldn't sleep. In the corner of the second floor, from time to time, Blessed Curl's quacking sounds could be heard, adding to his irritation. Usually, he didn't fall asleep, but at most, he could fall asleep after turning over. Tonight, he was very excited. It's only been more than half a year, and I'm going to touch the chi bottleneck. It feels a little too fast. He was thinking about why he could shorten the training time. In terms of the total amount of chi in his body, he was now definitely not less than Marcus. With good food and good bloodline, there was no reason for him to be worse than Marcus, who was born a civilian. Chi training was related to nutrition, but the noble family's genes were constantly optimized, and they were indeed better than civilians in all aspects. When List was a child, before the age of 10, he was very popular with the Count because of his appearance. Even if he had a stepmother, there was never a shortage of food and clothing. After the age of 10, the Count gradually became disappointed with him. The treatment might be a little worse, but he would never be abused. Therefore, since he was a child, his body's foundation was very solid, but he lacked a little understanding, so he couldn't break through the primary chi before adulthood. When he crossed over, his body and soul merged, and he broke through in one fell swoop, becoming an Earth Knight. In another half a year, he would be promoted to an elite Earth Knight. Speaking of which, it's quite natural. Good foundation, high understanding, good food, fast training speed is normal. But he always felt that his training speed was too fast. There must be some aspect that he had neglected. In a flash, a thought flashed through his mind. Is it because of the smoke dragon? I am affected by the smoke dragon? But soon he denied it. It shouldn't be. The predecessor had smoke missions when he was a child, and I didn't see how fast his training was. Even Earth Knight couldn't break through. So, what are the other reasons for the promotion? World of Warcraft meat. He had eaten a lot of World of Warcraft meat, especially recently. He had been eating World of Warcraft meat for every meal. If it wasn't for his young body's fast metabolism, he would have had a nosebleed. Levis's diet is definitely not worse than mine. He only entered the elite sequence 2 years ago at the age of 20. Lavera's food isn't bad either. She freeloads all day long in the castle, but she still hasn't become an elite. On the contrary, Lytton is only 12 years old this year, but Madame Marie has been bragging everywhere that her son is going to break through to become an Earth Knight. If it's true, this talent is stronger than Levis's, and maybe only a little bit worse than mine. No wonder half of Tulip Castle's resources are given to him. His thoughts were a little jumpy, and various things about the Tulip Castle surfaced in his mind. When he had just transmigrated, he couldn't wait to not have any contact with the Tulip Castle to avoid embarrassment. As time passed, he became more and more integrated into List's identity. The position of Tulip Castle in his mind quietly changed. He began to care about the Tulip Castle and regarded himself as a member of the Tulip family. Or rather, in his heart, it wasn't that he didn't have the ambition to enter the Tulip Castle. How could his own development be compared to inheriting the family's property? I'm afraid that in the Earl's heart, Lytton is the most optimistic. For this reason, he didn't hesitate to give half of the resources to cultivate Levis to Lytton. Otherwise, no matter how powerful Madame Marie's pillow talk is, it won't be able to shake him. This Earl who fought and killed on the battlefield isn't just listening. The Earl's foundation of the Tulip family was founded by Lee William with a spear and a sword. He is in the prime of his life. The Sky Knight's chi is at its peak. It's not that he doesn't have the thought of going further. Every year, the Grand Duke's development order is never absent. List recalled his contact with Lee William. The other party's boundless chi gave people a feeling of incomparable sharpness. The Earl's chi was water-attributed. Generally, water-attributed chi had a gentle and inclusive feeling. However, his water-attributed chi was sharp. There was no doubt that it was influenced by his character. Take List for example. His chi was fire-attributed. It should have been restless and fanatical. However, he gave people a feeling of gentleness and mellowness like a spring breeze. This was the influence of his character. He wasn't even willing to go to the battlefield. He only knew how to hole up in the flower town and farm, 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 and farm. How violent could he be? The predecessor didn't like Marie and Lytton, the mother and son. Therefore, he soon stopped thinking about them. He thought of his sister, Elvira. She was a 19-year-old girl with a somewhat Chunibu temperament. Her talent wasn't weak. She broke through to become an Earth Knight before reaching adulthood. Now that 3 or 4 years had passed, she still hadn't become an elite. This was related to a woman's physical fitness. The cultivation of a female knight was generally weaker than that of a male knight. It was said that there had never been a female dragon knight in this world. Elvira and Lytton are not comparable. According to Levis's situation, I will be a big shock when I enter the elite list. He boasted that he was a genius, a 20-year-old elite. But what is he in front of me? A 16-year-old elite, even in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, is not common. He didn't think that the chi bottleneck was forcibly raised by the smoke mission. The reward was just a bridge. He touched the chi bottleneck because he had already accumulated enough. In addition to me being a genius, there must be other factors. Lying on the bed, List turned left and right. He racked his brains until the latter half of the night. He had another epiphany. Could it be because of the milk? 3 glasses of milk in the morning, noon, and evening, as well as a glass of milk for supper. 4 glasses of milk a day, plus various dairy products, it is nutritious. Previously, he thought that the flower town's pleasant climate made the cow's milk so delicious. But obviously this was just his wishful thinking. Even if the climate was pleasant, the milk would not continuously improve its taste. After all, it was not the first time the cows had produced milk. The dairy farm had raised cows for more than 10 years, so the quality of the milk should have been discovered long ago. When Glanny mentioned the smoke dragon during the day, it made him think of many things. The invisible dragon caused a ruckus on the dairy farm, and its dragon might spread. Is it possible that it infected the cows? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. The taste of the milk has been improving. What does this mean? It means that the bloodline of this batch of cows is changing. They are probably already dragon-type cows. Milk Flower, Milk Yellow, and Milk Black were all pregnant. The improved taste of the milk they produced indicated that their bloodline had improved. Perhaps as ordinary cows, their aptitudes were limited and they could not infect dragon-type cows. However, their pregnant calves were very likely to inherit dragon bloodline and become genuine dragon-type cows. He simply sat up. His mood surged. Dragon-type cows sounded very rare and extremely valuable. Starting tomorrow, I will focus on the dairy farm to provide the cows with abundant pasture. In particular, the 3 pregnant cows must be taken care of so that their calves can give birth smoothly. He could not sleep. He forced himself to calm down and began to cultivate qi. The cells in his limbs and bones produced qi in a steady stream and converged in his meridians. Maintaining this state of cultivation, he cultivated all the way until the next morning. When the sun rose, the first ray of sunlight shone in. List abruptly opened his eyes. At this moment, he felt the qi surging in his meridians in his body, producing a feeling of fullness. Chapter 160. The sun rose in the east. Dosen, who was chained, had been pulling the chain back and forth, waiting for List to take it for a walk. At the dining table in the castle, List was reading Glanny Truth's book collection while enjoying breakfast. Breakfast was as sumptuous as ever, but he focused on tasting the milk. He didn't know if it was a psychological effect, or if he really tasted it, but the originally tasty milk now tasted of extraordinary quality. As expected of a dragon-type cow. "Mr. Carter, let someone inform Consultant Gort to come to the castle at 9 o'clock. "Yes, master. By the way, tell Mrs. Morrison that from now on, I will drink 2 glasses of milk every morning and 2 cups of milk tea at night." "As you wish." After drinking the milk in one gulp, Carter took the cup and went to find Mrs. Morrison to make a new cup. List closed the 16 Tips to Improve Fireball book, leaned back in the chair, and planned his thoughts. Enter the elite sequence. It was difficult to improve his battle energy by eating meat and drinking milk. At this time, he needed the help of magic potions to expand the body's ability to produce battle energy, so as to continuously increase his total battle energy. Until the body reached the critical point of the total battle energy storage, he would kick the door open, and the energy change would cause a qualitative change, thus breaking through. "From today onwards, I will be a medicine pot." List didn't know how the Sky Knight broke through to become a Dragon Knight, but he knew very well how the Earth Knight broke through to become a Sky Knight. His father was a Sky Knight, and his experience of breaking through was naturally passed on to his sons and daughters without reservation. Simply put, it was potions. The black tulip from the first 3 years has to be handed over to Levis to deal with. It's not easy to get. But the flame mushroom, I can keep it and enjoy it. The flame mushroom has fire magic and is an excellent magic material for making fire battle energy. He thought of Glanny. Glanny is proficient in fire magic. I can ask him to make magic potions. Magic potions referred to plant magic potions. It also referred to finished magic potions. Most plant magic potions had chaotic attributes and had auxiliary effects on various attributes of battle energy. A few plant magic potions, such as the flame mushroom, had obvious attributes and could be made into targeted magic potions. The improvement effect was better than the chaotic magic potion. One was general, and the other was specialized. The value was not easy to compare. It was not easy to compare. But for List, the magic potion made by the flame mushroom was the most suitable. Otherwise, a simple magic potion that did not obey the power of the nobles would have been crushed by the knight. Otherwise, pure mages who refused to obey the nobles' authority would have long been crushed by knights. In this world, be it in terms of quantity or strength, knights had the absolute advantage. Magic shooters were known to be on the same level as Dragon Knight. They stood at the pinnacle of power and could fight a dragon one-on-one, but they were definitely not a match for a Dragon Knight. The cooperation between the dragon and the knight was not as simple as 1+1, but a qualitative leap. That was why the knight was the mainstream, and the magician was the non-mainstream. As his thoughts drifted away, List promptly pulled himself back and continued to ponder. Although Glanny is a bit stubborn and has a relatively low IQ, but he is still in the category of a normal person. Perhaps I can strive for him to settle down in the Flower Town. He likes Coral City. It should be because there are brothels in Coral City. I can find him a wife. Sorcerers were all single. In order to pursue the truth, they gave up the restraints of the secular world. However, mages were also human beings. Solving problems with their own hands was far less attractive than discussing problems with each other. No matter what, I still have to earn money. Only by earning money can I buy more magic potions. He was a little regretful that he had given Levis his share of the black tulip for the first 3 years. At that time, he felt that it would take at least 3 years before he could reach the bottleneck of chi. Otherwise, if he could produce and sell the potions himself, he would be able to save another sum of money. There were too many ways to spend money. When this batch of World of Warcraft meat was finished, he would have to buy World of Warcraft meat from outside if he wanted to maintain his cultivation speed. This would be a huge expense. The cost of magic potions and World of Warcraft meat would be difficult for the lord of an ordinary town to support. List, who had a seafood business, could not guarantee that he could support it. There was no way to save money. He could only think more about how to generate income. Workshops had to be built in large numbers and strive to build Flower Town into an agricultural processing center. Black Horse Island also had to be conquered as soon as possible. The sale of Black Dragon Horse could definitely be exchanged for a lot of gold coins. At the same time, he had to speed up the construction of the Knight Squad. Without a knight to guard the territory, it was not a healthy state. Fortunately, there are dragon cows, which provide me with rich nutrition and relieve the food pressure. A few cups of dragon cow's milk every day could at least match the nutritional intake of World of Warcraft meat. Of course, the premise was that there were really dragon cows. After walking the dog, Gort had already arrived at the castle. There was no doubt that he had received the task of rectifying the dairy farm assigned by List. He was already accustomed to List's irregular actions from time to time. As you wish, the dairy farm's cows will enjoy the same treatment as your black dragon. List sent Gort away. List rode straight to the wheat settlement with his retainers. He wanted to inspect the progress of Glanny and Brad's work and urge them to complete the task as soon as possible. The 12-retainer knight whistled behind him with an imposing manner. After the logging team flattened the Thorns Ridge, Marcus and the retainer knight's task was over. The retainer knight returned to List's side to guard the lord. As for Marcus, he also had a new task. He was arranged by List to train the children brought by the serf. At present, there were a total of 354 children between the ages of 3 and 10 among the local and purchased serfs in the Flower Town. Marcus needed to divide them into several groups according to gender, age, physique, intelligence quotient, and other aspects. When the time came, List would arrange for suitable instructors to train the children. In order for the future loyal retainers to become Earth Knights, he had to start from the children. Sir Lord. The patrolmen guarding outside Glanny and Brad's house immediately saluted when they saw List. Magic apprentice Charlie opened the door, stuck his head out, and instinctively shrunk back. Sir Baron, do you want to come in? The original Charlie did not understand manners. But now, Charlie was in awe of List. The reason was very simple. List used Dosen to scare him, making him wet his pants. Since then, when Charlie met List, he did not dare to be impolite. Is your teacher working? Yes, the teacher is making the second crystal lamp. List entered the house and quickly saw the busy Glanny and Brad. Brad had already started carving the 5th crystal, while Glanny had just finished a lamp. Chapter 161. A pair of crystal lamps were taken away. Back in the castle, List ordered the servants to install the crystal lamps in his study. The lamps made of white crystal emitted a gentle white light, much like natural light, although not as strong as the sun. Just one crystal lamp was as bright as 10 candles. About 50 watts of incandescent light, not strong enough, it is best to install 2 more. Installing 3 crystal lamps in a room was the most suitable level of brightness. More dazzling, less dim. These crystal lamps could be lit for several years, and they would always be lit. They could also be designed to be switched on and off at any time, but it would require a high level of technical carving and was not cost-effective. The value of crystal was indeed high, but the price was not unacceptable. Tulip Castle had hundreds of crystal lamps. It was a bright castle from day to night, never falling into darkness. Many nobles liked to use crystal-carved tableware. After the enfeoffment, List also received a set of exquisite crystal tableware. Although its magic power was exhausted, it was still used to entertain distinguished guests. The bedroom also needs to be installed with crystal lamps, and then a lampshade. In this way, there is no need to turn off the light. As long as the lampshade is turned off, it is equivalent to turning off the light. He was used to sleeping in the dark. He couldn't sleep with the lights on. He instructed the servants to correct the position of the crystal lamp. With Glanny's speed, it would take about 3 to 5 days to finish the 10 crystal lamp. 10 lamps could at most maintain the use of 5 rooms, but he did not intend to add more. It was a bit out of line to take out so many crystals at once. It was better to keep a low profile. Besides, 3 lamps in the study, 2 in the living room, 2 in the dining room, 2 in the bedroom, and 1 in the bathroom were enough for him. "Master, Mr. Marcus is here, waiting for you in the living room." Carter came over. "What did Teacher Marcus say?" "He came to report on the night training of the serf children." Liszt thought for a moment and said, "Inform Karl Hammerstein and Rome Wintong to come over. In addition, call my 12 retainer knight over. I want to hold a meeting." He went downstairs. He saw Marcus. "Sir, Marcus greets you." "Good day," Liszt said as he allowed Thomas to fix his bow tie. "Teacher Marcus, let's talk under the apple tree. I've also invited some others to discuss night training." The apple tree was a wild fruit tree not far from the castle gate. There were stone benches and wooden tables under the tree. Liszt often read or pondered under the tree. Unfortunately, the apples were already ripe in this season. Therefore, for the time being, he couldn't learn from Newton, get hit in the head by an apple, and then come up with the epoch-making law of gravity. Next year, when the tree bore apples again, he would definitely ponder on astrophysics, magic, and battle chi under the tree. Apples are good stuff. 3 apples can change the world. Liszt sat down and pointed at the apple tree with a smile. Marcus was confused. "Apples are delicious, but how can they change the world? Do you know how humans came to be? We are the rulers of nature. We were born at the same time as this continent, sir." Well, looking at Marcus's serious answer, Liszt suddenly felt bored. This Earth Night was not a humorous subject. Therefore, he made a long story short. There is a legend that the first 2 people ate apples and created the current human race. Marcus asked, "Then why did 3 apples change the world? Eating the forbidden fruit, gravity, iPhone." Liszt regretted starting this topic. He could only talk nonsense. Later, some people ate apples and cultivated battle chi. Some ate apples and created magic. Of course, these are all legends. From the night novels, the authors of those novels have a good imagination. Those wizards? They can't change the world. The world belongs to the night. After talking nonsense for a while, Karl and Rome had arrived. The retainer knight was also gathered under the apple tree. Looking at Marcus, Karl, Rome, and the upright retainer knight, Liszt suddenly thought of King Arthur and his Round Table Conference. The fictional king of ancient Britain liked to hold meetings around a round table with his knight. The Europeans wrote a lot of stories about King Arthur and the Round Table Knight. The Japanese also wrote a lot of stories about King Arthur. If I become king one day in the future, will the table under the apple tree be called the Apple Table or the Apple Table Conference by future generations? Will Marcus, Karl, and Rome be called the Apple Android Knight by future generations? Maybe they should be called the Apple Knight? Liszt's thoughts were fleeting. He said seriously, "Teacher Marcus, has the grouping of the young serfs been completed?" "Yes, Your Excellency. Of the 354 young children, excluding the deformed and untrainable 26, there are 328 left. There are 169 boys and 159 girls. In accordance with Your Excellency's instructions, I have divided the girls into a separate group, and the boys into a passing group and a failing group. The girls will be trained by Rome." Liszt directly made a decision. The purpose of the training is to strengthen their bodies and facilitate future work arrangements. If there are outstanding seedlings who can cultivate chi, then other arrangements will be made. Rome immediately stood up and saluted, As you wish, I will train these girls strictly. Women cultivating chi was not mainstream. At least, most of the lords would choose boys when they chose a knight. However, it was not fixed. There were many lords who trained female knight. Sister Elvira trained a group of girls to form a female knight squad. Of course, she also trained more boys. Liszt did not train girls to form a female knight squad. Instead, he hoped that women could also increase their strength and do some heavy work in the future. In other words, he wanted to completely contract the work of farming and liberate the male labor force. Men could go to workshops as workers and do more physically demanding work such as repairing roads, bridges, shipbuilding, and so on. More importantly, if a woman's physique became stronger, the difficulty of childbirth would be reduced, and the survival rate of the baby would greatly increase. In addition, if a few talented female knight emerged, they could be taken in as retainer knight. If it was a beautiful female knight with fair skin, they could then be transferred to a personal guard. Wouldn't that be wonderful? The failing group will be trained by Karl. Liszt put away his thoughts and continued, the training for the failing group will be the same as for the girls' group. It is best to strengthen the body and cultivate chi. In the future, among this group of people, those who have chi can join the patrol team and the insect guard team. Those who don't have chi can build roads and bridges. Karl stood up and accepted the order. As you wish. Finally, the passing group will be trained by teacher Marcus. They will be the future knight guards of the territory. Philip, Xavier, you two retainer knight will take turns to assist teacher Marcus. Train the passing group. I think we should divide the passing group into smaller groups according to their age and train them separately. Chapter 162. As the meeting progressed, the number of participants gradually expanded. Gort, Isaiah, Blair, as well as Old Grandette and Costo joined. The contents of the meeting ranged from the training of young serfs to the future planning of the flower town. At noon, the Apple Table meeting was a complete success. The meeting decided to establish the flower town's Knight Academy. Because the territory was just a small town, the Knight Academy was kept secret. Academy was just an internal designation and not a permanent institution. Anyone who participated in the training of the Knight Academy would concurrently serve as an instructor and receive a salary of 2 copper coins per day. The list of the first 8 instructors was as follows. Etiquette Instructor Gort Mast, responsible for training the young serfs on how to be loyal to the Lord. The instructor of the Knight Squad, Marcus Wheeler, was responsible for training the Knight Squad's reserve members, namely, the young serfs who had passed. The instructor of the patrol team, Karl Eisenhammer, was in charge of training the young serfs of the patrol team who had failed the test. The worm protection team instructor, Rome Winebarrel, was responsible for training the worm protection team candidates, the young serfs of the girl group. Administrative instructor Isaiah Moss, responsible for teaching the young serfs administrative skills. Serpentine instructor Blair Steele, responsible for teaching the young serfs serpentine to read and write. Wind Speak instructor Grandette Short Bench, responsible for teaching the young serfs wind speak to read and write. Navigation instructor Costo Footprint, responsible for teaching the young serfs nautical knowledge. At the same time, the division of labor of the Flower Town's administrative office officials was adjusted, as well as the salary regulations. Among them, the consultant was paid 20 copper coins per day, the administrative officer was paid 10 copper coins per day, and the administrative officer assistant was paid 5 copper coins per day. The list was as follows. Flower Town's consultant and diplomat Gort Mast, responsible for overseeing the affairs of the Flower Town as well as foreign affairs. Administrative officer and legal officer Isaiah Moss, responsible for the administration of the Flower Town as well as legal affairs. Administrative officer assistant Odin Insole. Financial officer Blair Steele, responsible for the financial affairs of the Flower Town. Assistant Financial Officer Gray Sickle. Defense Officer Carl Hammerstein, responsible for the patrol team. Worm Protection Officer Rome Winespot, responsible for the worm protection team. Costo Footprint Seaman, in charge of navigation. It was expected that there would be a separate legal officer in charge of legal punishment and a diplomat in charge of foreign affairs, but there were no suitable officials for the positions at the moment. Both Old Grandette and Captain Costo were serfs, acting in the office of an official. They needed enough credit to get List to be exempted from his serf status and become an official. Therefore, they were treated like serfs, much lower than official officials. Even so, the two of them were so excited that they crawled on the ground and kissed the tips of List's leather shoes. To them, this was List giving them a chance to change their fate. Moreover, he gave them a window to the nobility. As long as the future lord continued to obtain glory, as officials who followed him, they would naturally be rewarded. Even if they couldn't, their descendants would have a higher starting point to strive for the glory of nobility. The glory of the night favors the flower town, favors Sir Lord, favors each and every one of us. At the luncheon, Gort was very excited. The more prosperous Flower Town was, the more his importance and power as an advisor was highlighted. He was not worried about being challenged and shaking his position. Only aristocrats could serve as advisors, and in Flower Town, apart from List, he was the only aristocrat. At least for a few years, this pattern was unlikely to change. He was so excited that he almost got drunk from drinking beer. Under the leadership of Sir Baron List, the prosperity of Flower Town is just around the corner. Let's raise our glasses and drink to the Lord. Cheers to the Lord. For Gort's flattery, List was automatically immune and calm. Flower Town has passed the difficult initial stage and is now in a stage of rapid development. With the help of the smoke mission, his vision is not something that Gort and others can guess. After the luncheon, the officials returned to their posts. List left Costo alone. Captain Costo, how is the sailor training going? It's almost done. I have already started the trial. Just wait for a heavy rain at sea to test the sailor's ability to adapt, and then we can sail to Black Horse Island. Costo replied excitedly. I don't need to repeat the importance of Black Horse Island. Pay attention to confidentiality during training. Please rest assured, Sir Lord, I did not mention a word about Black Horse Island in front of the sailors. Well done, keep working hard. Yes, Sir Lord. The sun was setting. Time flies, and the afternoon passed. List had just returned from an inspection of the thorns worms fungus bushes. He happened to meet Tom, the manservant who came looking for him. Master, the flower caravan transport team has brought back a magician named Elksun Truth. He is waiting for you in the castle. Got it. The magician was the falconer invited by Glanny Truth. When List came to the castle gate, he happened to see the other party wearing the iconic black magic cloak, completely covering his body. To be honest, List has always been curious. Why do magicians like to wear black cloaks? He himself wore a black cloak, but he also had red, gray, and blue cloaks. Baron List, Elksun Truth greets you. Elksun was more polite than Glanny and bowed slightly. List responded, Welcome to Flower Town, Mr. Elksun. The town is beautiful, quiet, and peaceful. I'm glad to work here. By the way, where is His Excellency Magician Glanny Truth? I received an invitation from him. He's making crystal lamps. Inside the castle, the servant served tea, and List asked directly, I heard that you can train falcons. I asked Mr. Glanny to invite you to help me train a World of Warcraft, the Wind Peregrine Falcon. It's in season for test flight, but it can't release magic wind blades yet. Elksun said calmly, First of all, I have never trained falcons in World of Warcraft. I have only trained ordinary falcons. It's hard to guarantee whether I can train the Wind Peregrine Falcon. Train it as much as you can. If it doesn't succeed, it's okay. It just so happens that Mr. Glanny wants to use World of Warcraft materials to make a magic equipment for me. List smiled. If the training is successful, I will provide you with 2 gold coins as a reward. Even if the training fails, there will be 1 gold coin as a reward. You are very generous. Elk Sun was satisfied with the price. I will do my best. Elk Sun was a very good person to chat with compared to a magician like Glanny who had a bad temper, a rigid brain, and could not see the situation clearly. List's abundant knowledge, interesting demeanor, slightly respectful tone, and sonorous steel voice all made List have a good impression of him. The steel voice popular in the upper class is indeed much better than the poor dialect of Coral Island. Not afraid of not knowing the goods, but afraid of comparing the goods. Chapter 163. What a beautiful creature! The eagle is a divine bird, and so is the falcon. Even an eagle raised from a young age yearns for freedom, not to be a loyal dog. Elk Sun looked at the winged peregrine falcon on the windowsill and marveled. Trembling Woods, who was chained outside the castle, suddenly sneezed for some reason. You mean, the eagle can't obey orders? List frowned. His idea was to train the winged peregrine falcon to be loyal and obedient like Dosen. They can be close to the people who raise them, but there is no way to force them to recognize their master except to subdue them. Domesticating an eagle is actually forcing it to change its habits as an eagle by constantly applying external forces. How to change, how to train. Burn. Burn? Yes, the most important thing to subdue the arrogant character of the eagle is to keep it awake, keep it hungry, and completely break its mind in order to change its habit. Let it hunt its prey in the way it was designed, and not run away after flying out. Elk Sun has many years of eagle training experience and spoke in front of List, including the tools used to train the eagle, the steps, and the different ways to deal with different eagles. Later, he is going to spend 40 days to summarize the training methods of the winged peregrine falcon and strive to break its mind and make it a puppet of the eagle trainer, so that it can be completely subdued. After listening to him, List felt inexplicably awkward. Especially the means of domestication. Burn the eagle so that the eagle can't sleep, so that its mind is lost. Starving the eagle, constantly wrapping meat with hemp, letting the eagle eat it to clear its stomach, and then drawing out the hemp to keep the eagle hungry. Trapping the eagle, putting a hat on the eagle's eyes so that it can't escape even if the rope is released. Tripping the eagle, tying a rope to the eagle's legs so that it can't stretch its legs to hunt. The whole training process is the process of repeatedly torturing the eagle. He couldn't help but ask, Mr. Elk Sun, is an eagle trained in this way still an eagle? Elk Sun, who was talking endlessly, was obviously stunned and then laughed. Baron List, eagles are just beasts. Humans domesticate beasts, either to eat, ride, or plow the fields and use them as tools. Eagle taming is just a more complicated tool. Is there no other relatively gentler way? List thought that he was not a soft-hearted person, and his treatment of Stupid Woman was very cruel. But Blessed Curls was not the same as Stupid Woman. Blessed Curls was taken care of little by him. It was not an ordinary World of Warcraft. Besides, it was a reward for the smoke mission, so it was pretty cool. I'm sorry, my lord. Elk Sun said calmly. I understand your point of view. It is true that the method of training the eagle is cruel, but compared to the harvest, this cruelty is nothing. The winged peregrine falcon is just a World of Warcraft. If you don't tame it, it will resist and escape sooner or later. It will only bring you trouble. It made sense. After a while, List put away the kindness in his heart and said, All right, from tomorrow onwards, Blessed Curls will be trained by you. I still need your cooperation. It's best if you can spare 5 hours a day to train it with me. Only then will it surrender to you. Blessed Curls was still rattling on the windowsill. He didn't know that his fate was about to sink. List took a deep breath and suddenly changed his mind. Mr. Elkson, why don't you wait another 2 days? You can help me make the crystal lamps first. It's hard for Mr. Glanny to make the crystal lamps in a short time. He hoped that Blessed Curls could enjoy it for another 2 days, and he also hoped to speed up the progress of the Thorn's Worm quest. If you really need it, I'd be happy to help you. In the evening, Elkson met with Glanny. Glanny, it's nice to meet you again. It's been half a year since we last met. I wanted to visit Moss Town several times, but I was delayed. Glanny's face was cold. If it weren't for Baron List needing a hawk, I wouldn't have written to you at all. It seems that you have a deep prejudice against me. It's a pity. Baron List wants us to work together to make all the crystal lamps as soon as possible. Work together with you? Are you kidding me? List had been letting the two mages greet each other. Seeing that it was going to be unpleasant, he said, Mr. Glanny, you can rest assured that your reward will not be reduced. I just hope to speed up the production of crystal lamps as soon as possible. The Black Pearl magic equipment has to be made as soon as possible. I don't think working with him will speed up the progress of the work. Not all mages know how to make magic equipment. Elkson kept smiling. Sir Glanny, I recognize that your skills are good, but please don't belittle me like that. Even if my skills are not good enough, it's normal for two people to work together. Besides, Baron List has said that he will pay me separately and will not rob you of your business. Glanny still wanted to speak. List said impatiently, well, that's settled. Now, let's start the dinner to welcome Mr. Elkson. I hope he will have a good time in Flower Town. Elkson smiled and saluted. Thank you for your hospitality. I walked around Flower Town and have fallen in love with the beautiful scenery and people here, as well as its thriving style. Look. List blushed a little when he heard what she said. He thought that mages were like Glanny, but now he knows that among mages there are also elegant figures like nobles. When the dinner began, the town officials joined. The atmosphere became more lively and Glanny's wit, humor, and erudition quickly won everyone's favor. Glanny, on the other hand, had a cold face all the way, eating and drinking by himself, out of place at the banquet. In the next 2 days. With the addition of Elkson, the production of crystal lamps really sped up. By the morning of the 3rd day, 10 crystal lamps were successfully made. All the crystal lamps have been installed in the castle. Mr. Glanny, next, make the Black Pearl magic equipment as soon as possible. List actually regretted choosing to use him to make magic equipment. However, the basic integrity of a person was a must, so he did not show too much emotional change towards Glanny. Glanny still had the same indifferent expression, with pride in his eyes. What are you going to name it? It will definitely be an excellent magic equipment. It must have a name that matches its temperament, so that my magic equipment making skills will not be in vain. Dinghai Pearl, I've already thought about it. Dinghai Pearl? Glanny thought for a moment and said bluntly, it's a common name. How about the Eye of the Storm, which is more imposing than the Dinghai Pearl and more in line with its positioning? Eye of the Storm? Dinghai Pearl. Chapter 164. List sent away the blind Glanny. List closed the door, waved his hand in the bright study, and summoned the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward: the magic ingredient variant fast-growing thorns. Magic ingredient. Seeing these 2 serpentines, List's pupils suddenly dilated. The mutation that he yearned for was finally realized. Sure enough, the thorns gave birth to a magic ingredient. It was a wise choice not to cut off the ordinary fast-growing thorns. Although the fast-growing iron thorns were practical, they were not as important as the magic ingredient. Especially now that he had entered the elite Earth Knight sequence, he needed a magic ingredient. It was like a timely rain, drenching his heart and making him feel refreshed. The smoke in front of him slowly changed, forming new serpentines. Mission: The outbreak of 5 varieties of variant thorns is the desire of the thorns sprite to evolve. It launched a fierce battle against fate. As its contract master, you should lend a helping hand. Please provide the thorns sprite with a new variety of thorns. Reward, a sprite. Seeing this, List's pupils dilated again. The thorns sprite chain mission has finally reached the last round. My first sprite is a thorns sprite. I thought it was the least likely to evolve successfully, but I didn't expect it to evolve first. There is no new variety of thorns in the flower town. It seems that I have to look outside. Thinking of this, he didn't hesitate for a moment. He directly summoned his retainer knight Philip and Xavier, the 2 trainee knight who first cultivated Qi and were the most promising to break through to the Earth Knight rank, were the focus of List's training. Philip, Xavier, I have a mission for you. The teenager's immature face had been tanned, and his eyes were no longer dull, but firm. I am willing to serve, sir. Philip, go to the Coral City and tell Captain Harpagon to mobilize all the caravans to look for thorns. I don't want ordinary thorns, I want an unusual variety of thorns. Philip responded in a capable manner. Understood. Xavier, go with the thorns caravan. The same mission is to find an unusual variety of thorns. Also, call Teacher Marcus when you leave. As you wish. Xavier quickly called over Marcus, who was training the young serfs. Sir, are you looking for me? Follow me. List took Marcus to the insect room on the 2nd floor and showed him the increasingly fat thorns sprite. Teacher Marcus, you are my most trusted person. Take a look at these sprite. Do you see anything? Marcus rarely saw sprite worms. This did not mean that he knew little about sprite worms. As someone who aspired to become an aristocrat, he had inquired a lot about sprite worms. So when he saw the thorns worm, he was stunned. My lord, this thorns worm, has it entered the fat pupa stage? 4 kinds of thorns have been produced in a row. This thorn worm of mine is not an ordinary thorn worm. It has a strong desire to evolve. I feel it now, it wants to evolve urgently, so I want to help it. I need you to go to Tulip Castle, as well as Beer Castle and Crushed Stone Castle. My lord, what is the task you gave me? Contact them and ask about the thorns worm. I guess there are thorns worms in all 3 places. At least there are 2 in Tulip Castle. If they also have a non-ordinary variety of thorns, talk to them for me. I will take the thorn worm to assimilate these thorns. Thomas nodded, then frowned and asked, My lord, do you think it is possible for the thorns worm to break through into a sprite? Why not? Perhaps the probability is very low, but nothing is absolute. Even if there is only a slight possibility, I will not give up. I need the thorn sprite to take care of the fast-growing iron thorns for me, understand? Understood, I will set off now. I will write 3 letters for you to take with you. Marcus set off with 3 letters. List was not idle either. He took Dosen, said hello to Elkson, who was ready to train Blessed Curls, and set off for the thorns bush. He was looking for a new magic potion to mutate the fast-growing variety of thorns, which he called fast-growing magic thorns. Fast-growing thorns, fast-growing poisonous thorns, fast-growing thorns, fast-growing iron thorns, fast-growing magic thorns. The benefits brought by the thorns worm are already very rich. Now that it is about to break through, the benefits that thorns can bring in the future will be even richer. Riding on the back of Black Dragon, he suddenly thought of a very serious question. After I have a sprite, I can probably choose to change my surname, right? Some nobles will change their surname for their sprite. Usually, after having a greater sprite, they will change their surname to declare the glory of the family. But greater sprites are rare, so many small nobles have learned from them and changed their surname after getting a lesser sprite. Greater sprites live for 200 years and lesser sprites live for 100 years, which can continue the glory of the family for several generations. Tulip family, which began in the Earl's era, the tulip sprite evolved into a greater tulip sprite, and the surname changed from Tile to Tulip. The tulip family of Beer Castle, which has a tulip sprite, directly changed its surname to Tulip. The Gravel family of Gravel Castle, which also has a lesser sprite, did not change its surname. Perhaps it was because it was ambitious and wanted to get a greater sprite before changing its surname, or perhaps it was because it was shy and embarrassed to use a lesser sprite as its surname. In short, I can now change my surname to Thorns. List Thorns. It doesn't sound as noble as List Tulip. Forget it, I won't change it. I will continue to be a tulip, keep a distance from Tulip Castle, and continue to get some benefits from the Earl in the future. List went to the Thorns worm grass bush. The worm protection team came forward and saluted. He directly cast magic eyes and observed the thorns. The Thorns worm grass was the most conspicuous and full of magic. A moment later, List found a new sign of magic in the corner of the bush and determined the location of the fast-growing magic thorns. The fast-growing magic thorns were not conspicuous. On the contrary, compared to the surrounding fast-growing thorns, it was even shorter. This shortness did not refer to the shortness of its seedling stage, but the overall appearance of the plant. Looking at its appearance, it was definitely more than a month old. The branches were fully extended, but the height only reached his calf. Chaos attributed magic, the same as Black Tulip. Not bad, not bad. In this way, I have a new magic potion to use. The most important thing is that this is a fast-growing variety of magic potion. It is simply a gold coin production line. List touched the fast-growing magic thorns. Its thorns were small and blunt, and basically had no lethality. Next to it was a fast-growing thorn. The thorns gleamed coldly as if they were ready to kill at any time. I have to protect this fast-growing magic thorns. The other types of thorns around it, from head to root, should be uprooted to make room for it to grow. List decided on the plan to cultivate the fast-growing magic thorns. He had a new worry. The fast-growing magic thorns need thorns worm to increase production, and the fast-growing iron thorns also need thorns worm to increase production. How should I distribute them? You can't have your cake and eat it too. He could only hope that the thorns worm would break through the thorn lesser sprite as soon as possible and affect a larger range of thorns. He stood up and looked at the more than 100 acres of thorns worm grass bush. It was as if he saw a steady stream of magic potions and high-quality wood. Chapter 165. Oh heavens! After receiving the notice, Gort rushed to the Garden of Thorns. He immediately opened his mouth wide and described in an exaggerated manner. I can't believe this is true, magic ingredient thorns? I thought that Flower Town was a place of night glory, but now I understand that this is more like the birthplace of night glory. The birthplace of night glory? I like that, Advisor Gort. There may be more surprises that you can't imagine. List pretended to be mysterious. With the existence of the Smoke Mission, everything here was a matter of course. Dragon. Smoke dragon. A dragon that could create a country, so this little benefit was nothing. Are there more surprises? Of course, you will know soon. List was referring to the evolution of Thorn's sprite. He believed that news of a new variety of thorns would soon come back. When the time came, after the assimilation of the Thorns sprite, what would be obtained would be a magical Thorns lesser sprite. He did not tell Gort, as Gort's big mouth could not keep secrets. As for the evolution of Thorns sprite, he was not ready to announce it until the moment of success. He was only going to let Marcus know. List trusted Marcus very much. His family had settled down in Flower Town. He skipped the topic. List said, Teacher Gort, the Garden of Thorns can be transplanted and planned. My idea is to transplant the fast-growing thorns and poisonous thorns to the edge of Thorns Ridge and surround Flower Town to prevent it from being invaded by World of Warcraft or thieves. This is a big project. Gort looked embarrassed. It may not be possible for a short time. The autumn harvest has arrived, and I am organizing the serfs to harvest this year's crops. Then wait until after the autumn harvest to arrange the garden of thorns. But for now, arrange for people to dig up the ordinary thorns around the fast-growing magic thorns, so that the magic ingredient thorns can grow and multiply. As you wish. After a while, the insect officer who was inspecting the worm stalks, Ram Winebarrel, also hurried over. List then added, "We need to strengthen the protection of the Garden of Thorns. There will be at least 4 insect protectors in each squad. They will be divided into 8-hour shifts." Understood. Also, I will buy a few big drums and place them in the wooden houses where the insect guards are on duty. If there is a situation, they will directly hit the drums to alert us. After making the appropriate arrangements, he reluctantly left the Garden of Thorns. Back at the castle, Elk Suntruth has designed a complete set of tools for training blessed curls, including eagle sprout, eagle tripod, eagle canteen, eagle gloves, eagle cage sleeves, falcon platform, false bait, and a series of equipment. These were all precisely made according to Blessed Curl's body shape. It wasn't too expensive, but it wasn't cheap either. There were so many of them that it would cost at least 1 gold coin. Baron List, we're about to enter the eagle taming phase. Please refrain from feeding blessed curls. As for the rest, leave it to me to make it unable to sleep. In the end, I will completely surrender to the arrogant head below you. Got it. List reached out and touched Blessed Curls. Although Blessed Curls wouldn't bite List, it would avoid his touch. It didn't like anyone touching it. In the following time, Blessed Curls' training began. Moving out of the castle and locked in a separate falcon room, Elk Sun stared at Blessed Curls and recorded his detailed data. It must be said that this witty and humorous magician, instead of doing magic work, worked as a breeder, which was quite interesting. "Mr. Elk Sun, what magic are you good at?" "Earth and water." "Let me ask you a curious question. How did you become a magician?" Elk Sun recalled, "Baron List, I was born in a serf's family. It happened that my teacher passed through Snake Spear City and went to the town where my family lived to pick some plant. He needed a helper and chose me. After that, he asked me if I would like to explore the truth with him, and I said yes." "So you are from Snake Spear City." "My family was originally a serf in Midway Island. When I was a child, because the Lord, Viscount Clare, angered the Marquis of Deep Throat Island, I was exiled to a deserted island. So my family and I came to Coral Island and settled in Snake Spear City, but my parents have died and I am now alone. The Marquis of Deep Throat Island, full name Wallace Pineapple Green, one of the 7 marquises of the Grand Duchy. The Viscount of Small Kerchief Island, whose brother, the Viscount of Big Kerchief Island, was a nobleman of the Marquis of Deep Throat Island. As for Midway Island, List had never heard of it and knew nothing about Viscount Clare. But in the early years, the Tulip family acquired Coral Island and bought a large number of serfs from all over the world. Presumably, Elk Sun was bought as a serf to Coral Island at that time. Chatting for a while, List suddenly asked, "Mr. Elk Sun, do you know fire magic?" "I'm not proficient, but I'm sure I will." "Then, I have a batch of fire magic potions. Can you make them into magic potions for me?" List decided to hand over the production of magic potions to Elk Sun. Elk Sun raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled. "I won't refuse to make money. On the path to truth, gold coins are indispensable. Knowledge is never free. Mages like to make bottles and cans and study all kinds of explosive and dangerous things. These materials have to be bought with gold coins. As a class outside the aristocratic system, if they want to earn gold coins, they have to work by themselves, making magic potions, making magic equipment. Mages who specialize in ice may also make some ice cubes for sale. Of course, some mages will choose to join the aristocratic system. For example, serving as a court mage or a magic consultant of the aristocracy and enjoying the nobility's offerings. But mages like Elksun and Glanny certainly can't enjoy the treatment of offerings. They can only work by themselves to make money and by knowledge to explore the truth. Tulip Castle has a mage who specializes in the production of magic potions. He lives in seclusion and is not short of money. The two can only do odd jobs and live a semi-secluded life. Then, I will entrust you to help me make the flame mushroom magic potion in my hands. I will build a flame mushroom processing workshop in Shiitake Town and cooperate with you for a long time. How about it? List had intended to keep Glanny, but now he felt that Elksun was a better choice. Elksun seemed a little hesitant. Will you stay in Flower Town for a long time? There is no need to stay here for a long time. The production of flame mushrooms is limited. I can make all the flame mushroom magic potions in about a week a month. In that case, I am willing to cooperate. After Elksun nodded, he wondered, Baron List, why don't you cooperate with Tulip Castle? Isn't it the same to make a finished product and cooperate again? There is no loss in transportation costs. Maybe we can make more money. Chapter 166. Elksun presided over the construction of the flame mushroom processing workshop and cooked the eagle every day. Glanny devoted himself to the production of the calm pearl. Gort and other officials presided over the autumn harvest of Flower Town. The town's civilians also joined the harvest team, harvesting wheat, barley, naked wheat, leveling the wasteland, picking wild fruits, picking vegetables, and collecting tulip capsules. After autumn came a long winter of ice and snow, and all crops in Flower Town would stop growing. Master, this is the newly picked black nightshade today. Butler Carter brought over a plate of small black fruit. With the blessing of the black nightshade sprite worm, the output of the black nightshade field soared, and a plate of fruit could be harvested every day. This thing tasted really good, but it was uncomfortable to eat too much of it. List only tasted it occasionally and gave the rest to his subordinate. Since the outbreak of the thorn sprite worm, the black nightshade sprite worm has become the most useless sprite worm. The black nightshade sprite worm has a low output and cannot be sold in bulk. It can only be used as a flavoring modifier. However, with the example of the thorn sprite worm, List will not underestimate the black nightshade sprite worm. Who knows if one day, the black nightshade sprite worm will have a big outbreak, triggering a series of tasks and evolving into a black nightshade sprite. You try it too. Thank you, Master. After eating a few black nightshade fruits, List asked, It's almost October, and winter will come in 2 months. Have you started preparing the food stockpiled in the warehouse? I have entrusted Captain Harpagon and Captain Sherlock to be ready to purchase newly harvested wheat at any time. Wheat alone is not enough. Corn, beans, salt, sugar, and so on should be purchased. Even in winter, I don't want the castle's food conditions to decline. List didn't want to be wronged. I will inform Advisor Gort to build a warehouse near the castle to store winter supplies. Suddenly, he thought of something. By the way, remember to remind me to ask someone to build an ice house in Flower Town. Yes, Master. Making ice with saltpeter is indeed very convenient, and it can be recycled. However, it was a pity that it would be consumed in the process of using it. Currently, out of the 300 kilograms of saltpeter powder, only 260 kilograms were left. A total of 40 to 50 kilograms had been consumed. In another year and a half, there would be no way to make ice. A new saltpeter mine could not be found even if one wanted to. Therefore, in the end, it was still necessary to dig a large ice cellar and store the ice in winter for use in the coming year. Warehouse, ice house, falcon house, kennel, dog prison, stupid woman, apple table, stable, clamshell. List found that the castle, which was supposed to be independent on the hillside and surrounded by green grass, was almost surrounded by all kinds of illegal buildings. No, the warehouse and the icehouse have to be built far away. The dog kennel will be moved to the castle's main entrance. The falcon platform can be moved to the top platform of the castle and build a third floor in the form of a loft. The apple table, the apple tree, and the giant clam shell can be considered the scenery, but the stables have to be moved a little further. The reason why there was an empty space around the castle. It was to set up a circle of safety where one could not hide and prevent assassins from sneaking in. Not only do we have to remove the illegal buildings, but we also have to plant a circle of hedges and dig a moat. If financial and material resources permit, we also have to strengthen the castle walls, especially the main entrance. It is best to build a bridge-type gate. The castle relied on the terrain. The gate could be built in a very high position and then connected to the outside with a bridge. People could walk directly under the bridge. This made it difficult for the attacker to have a large number of knight charge at the same time, thus ensuring that the castle would not be taken in a short time. Winning time for friendly support. Speaking of which, Flower Town was unlikely to be attacked. After all, Liszt was the Count's son and the Tulip family's bloodline was the flag on this island. But in case of pirates, in case the pirates had to attack, a well-fortified castle could save lives. If I want to carefully complete the castle, I need a lot of money. I am indeed very rich, with tens of millions of fixed assets, but the liquidity, even with the support of the seafood business, is still not enough to make ends meet. It's a headache. A castle that could have its own name. At the very least, it had to be able to support the independent living conditions of the castle, with sufficient food, solid defenses, and a water source. The Tulip Castle built on a cliff had a fountain. Even if it was besieged by troops and horses, it could persist for at least half a year or even a year. In this regard, Flower Town's castle was very deficient. Without a water source, it had to be fetched from the town's well. Should I look for an opportunity to sell some mithril, crystals, and jades? Let's talk about it after exchanging them for several thousand gold coins. The high-value items he could sell were a chest of magic metal mithril, a chest of dragon mineral crystals, and a chest of magic stones and jade, as well as the remaining 10 or so black pearls. Black pearls were extremely valuable, especially the basin-sized and basketball-sized black pearls. They were excellent navigational tools, while the smaller black pearls could also be made into personal defensive accessories. It wasn't cost-effective to sell them now. Giant clams weren't something that could be seen often, especially such a big giant clam. The remaining mithril, crystals, and jades were all good things with a price but no market. He was also reluctant to sell them. Forget it, let's not think about it. It's not time for me to lie down and enjoy myself. I still have to fight. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He couldn't stay in the castle. He simply took the knight and Dosen, who was getting stronger and stronger. He wandered around. He went to the dog prison to see the pregnant stupid woman and let Dosen get intimate with her. He went to the dairy farm to see the 3 pregnant cows and touch their bellies to see the calves that were likely to be dragon cows. He went to the fruit-stealing monkey training ground in the oyster settlement to see the very obedient fruit-stealing monkeys climbing trees to pick fragrant coconuts, and the 3 female monkeys with bulging bellies. He went to the wheat settlement to see the 12 big fat pigs in the pig farm. In winter, these big fat pigs can be slaughtered for meat. There was also the growth of each sprite worm stalk. The day was over. He turned around again. 3 days passed in a trance. There was no news of finding new varieties of thorns for the time being. Liszt had been training Blessed Curls with Elksun. Blessed Curls, who had not eaten or drunk for 3 days, had a hoarse voice and could not sleep. His eyes were red. After seeing Liszt, his cries were particularly tragic. Gag. Gag. The handsome appearance had already disappeared, and only a large fat bird with messy feathers remained. After calling for a long time, Liszt did not feed it any food. Blessed Curls seemed to be exhausted and fell from the platform. List was just about to go up and help it up. Elksun stopped him. Baron List, now is a good time to defeat Blessed Curls. Don't interrupt it, or it will take more time. Hasn't it been subdued yet? No, it hasn't bowed its head, so it's not subdued. Well, you continue to train the eagle. List shook his head, glanced at Blessed Curls, who got up from the ground and turned to go out. Even after walking for a long distance, he could still hear Blessed Curls' blood-curdling screams. Chapter 167. At the end of October, the weather turned cold. The atmosphere in the castle was getting more and more depressing, mainly because the mood of the owner, List, was getting worse and worse. The flower town was thriving. More than 400 new serfs quickly integrated into the flower town. The autumn harvest harvested a lot of food every day, filling the warehouse. In such an atmosphere, he should be happy. However, the news from the flower caravan made him very uneasy. His tone was slightly gloomy. Harpagon, the flower caravan covers so many small towns in the seafood business and has established a huge information network. Yet, you can't even find a different type of thorn? Harpagon knelt on the ground, frightened. The angry words of an elite Earth Knight and the extremely dissatisfied attitude of a territorial ruler put him under a lot of pressure. Sir Lord, I'm sorry, Harpagon has let you down. I have let everyone in the caravan announce to the public that if you can provide a new variety of thorns, you will get a high reward. However, the thorns sent are all ordinary varieties. There is no variety that meets your requirements. Have you searched all the areas covered by the flower caravan? Birch City, Elm City, Snake Spear City, Gravel City, and the surrounding towns have all been searched. If you want to continue your search, you will have to go to the villages under the towns. Then go to the villages one by one and ask them one by one. List's temper was not directed at Harpagon, but in any case, he was very annoyed. You can directly withhold 1/10 of the flower caravan's funds for the cost of searching for new varieties of thorns. Harpagon replied cautiously, Yes, Sir Lord, Harpagon will search carefully. He got the opportunity to be promoted to the captain of the flower caravan after Grandet was promoted. He didn't want to be dismissed by List for his incompetence and be sent back to the field. Go and do your work. List waved his hand and let Harpagon leave. Then he sat in a chair and rubbed his temples with his hand. Not only did the flower caravan not find anything, but the thorns caravan was also empty-handed. He thought that the caravans all over the Coral Island would be able to find new thorns by casually asking around. Who would have thought that they would not be able to find it? The caravan has offered a lot of rewards for finding a new variety of thorns. The civilians who get the news will definitely go crazy looking for it. There have been no results for several days, indicating that there is a great possibility that there is no new variety of thorns on Coral Island. Now we can only wait for news from Marcus. He asked the caravan and Marcus to split up and search. It was to find more species of thorns to increase the probability of the thorns sprite worm's breakthrough. The more pheromones collected, the greater the possibility of evolution. If there's no good news about Marcus, where should I look? There were none on the Coral Island, so he could only look for them on the other islands. As a minor aristocrat, his social circle was basically on the Coral Island. Counts were aristocrats directly infeofed by the Grand Duke. Most of the surrounding islands were marquises and their followers. Their relationship with the Coral Island was not very harmonious. It was a taboo for the followers of different lords to casually interact with each other. However, there was one island that he could enter and leave at will, the Red Crab Island. List was a legitimate descendant of the Taro family. His mother was the daughter of Merlin Longtaro, the lord of the Red Crab Island, one of the 7 great marquises of the Grand Duchy, and the master of the Longtaro Castle. When he first visited Marquis Merlin, He was recruited by the sparsely populated Taro family. If I ask Grandpa Merlin, no, I only need to ask Cousin Meople for help, then I should be able to complete the task. The huge red crab island was equivalent to a province in China. How could he not find a few different varieties of thorns? Perhaps there were many different varieties of thorns in the hedges of the Long Taro castle. Thinking of this, the irritation in his heart subsided a little. If one day I can no longer stay on the Coral Island, I will go to the Long Taro castle for shelter. I believe that Grandpa will at least arrange a viscount fief for me. However, the Red Crab Island was a big family, so it might not be as good as the Coral Island. No matter how close a cousin is, he couldn't be closer to a relative. Suddenly, he thought of Athena Salmon, and his mood could not help but warm up a little. It's been a few months, I don't know if Athena has held hands with other nobles. I remember running in the sunset that afternoon, that was my lost youth. He was very fond of the noble lady who boldly expressed her love to him. But soon, the beautiful memories were interrupted by a mournful wail. The sound came from the falcon's room outside the castle. It was made by the tortured Blessed Curls. The irritation that had just subsided came back. He got up, walked out of the castle, and went to the falcon's room. Elk Sun was sitting opposite the falcon, his eyes bloodshot. Seeing List arrive, he hurriedly said, "Baron List." "Mr. Elk Sun, Blessed Curls, haven't you bowed down yet? Your winged peregrine falcon, its inner pride is beyond my imagination," Elk Sun explained awkwardly. He thought that the eagle was in the bag, but now it was completely frozen. The winged peregrine falcon would rather starve to death than bow its head. List suddenly saw red blood on the corner of Blessed Curls's mouth. Did it vomit blood? Yes, in a long-term state of hunger, its body is on the verge of danger. If it is repeated several times, it still won't succeed. Sorry, Baron List, this is a situation I have not encountered in domesticating ordinary falcons. In other words, Blessed Curls may starve to death. There is such a possibility, but it is also possible that after a few days, it will bow its head. After all, World of Warcraft is just a beast. They will succumb to the threat of death. At that time, after a few more training, it will be your qualified pet. Squeak! Blessed Curls, who was vomiting blood on the falcon platform, let out a shrill scream. But its eyes did not show the slightest sign of surrender, it was still stubborn. List looked over, as if he could see through those eyes, disdain for fate. Fate. It was probably the after-effects of the smoke dragon. Recently, he often associated everything with fate. He always wanted to understand the cause and effect of fate. Fortunately, the materialistic values ingrained in him since childhood were still on the defensive. I don't think Blessed Curls will surrender to anyone. List shook his head. The winged peregrine falcon was not a caged bird. He could see from an early age that Blessed Curls yearned for the sky. Mr. Elk Sun, the training ends here. I need you to spend more time on the flame mushroom magic potion. What? Elk Sun was stunned. Baron List, if you give up now, all the previous efforts will be in vain, and as it grows up, there will be no second chance. Don't worry, I will pay you according to the work you have done. List decided to be capricious for once, leaving the beautiful picture to his imagination. He said, untying the rope on Blessed Curls on the platform. He personally brought meat and water to feed Blessed Curls. Blessed Curls was a World of Warcraft, and its resilience was very strong. In just half a day, it had recovered a lot of vitality. Fly, Blessed Curls. Opening the door of the falcon room, List pushed Blessed Curls. Blessed Curls was obviously not used to the current situation. It turned to look at List, its eyes flashing with confusion. But after a moment of hesitation, it finally flapped its wings and jumped off the platform. Wings fluttered and flew. Snap! It fell down, but it quickly fumbled with the instinct to fly. For the last time, it kicked off from the ground, flapped its wings, shook off 2 feathers, and successfully flew into the sky. Squeak! Chapter 168. Master, blessed curls flew away. I know. You must be in a very bad mood right now. Of course, these damn World of Warcraft, the next time I catch them, I'll stew them directly. List complained. I fed it and let it go free, but after so long, it still didn't mature and flew away. Can be seen that there is no difference between World of Warcraft and Beast. Woof woof. Dosen protested in the kennel. List vented his dissatisfaction with blessed curls and turned around. There was no longer any angry expression on his face. Mr. Carter, the Thorns caravan hasn't bought the female wolfhound yet? I heard from Sherlock that we need to contact the flower caravan. There is no suitable female wolfhound for Dosen's size in North Valley City. Carter chose his words carefully. As soon as possible, or else Dosen will be suffocated sooner or later. I found that there is something wrong with the way he looks at the horses recently. Well, in order not to let Dosen suffocate, List could only train it hard. Dosen, rock thorns. Poochie. A thick rockthorn pierced the ground. Dosen, multiple rockthorns. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. Poochie. A large group of thick rockthorns pierced the ground. Dosen is really good at World of Warcraft. Baron List, Dosen should be an intermediate World of Warcraft. Elkson, who had just taken a nap, came from a distance and looked at Dosen, his eyes shining. What a beautiful big guy. King of Thorns Ridge is not enough to describe it. He already knew that Dosen had eaten the bloodline fruit. List touched Dosen's big head. In intermediate World of Warcraft, it should be a very weak one, especially since it can only release rockthorns. Multiple rockthorns is barely a new spell, but after all, it's just a superposition of rockthorns, the essence has not changed. Dosen turned around and licked List's hand. His hands were instantly covered in saliva. The valet quickly took out a handkerchief and handed it to List to wipe his hands. Elkson laughed. It is not an adult World of Warcraft, and its understanding of magic is not very good. Even for us mages, it takes a long time to master a kind of magic, let alone World of Warcraft. As it grows older, it will automatically comprehend the power bestowed by its bloodline and guide it to release new magic. I hope so. List was not at a loss. At least now, Dosen has no natural enemies on the Coral Island. From now on, I will train it to adapt to the battlefield and help me gain glory. You will obtain countless dazzling honors just like the Count. List smiled faintly. I think so too. This was not boasting. This was called confidence. Nobles must have a thirst for glory and self-confidence. Humility will only be considered timid or unmotivated. No matter what List thinks in private, on the surface, he must pretend to be ready to go to the battlefield at any time and make a career. Only in this way can his subordinates follow him. Life is like a drama, it all depends on acting skills. As an experienced adult soul, coupled with the aristocratic education his predecessor received from childhood, he was undoubtedly proficient in acting. After performing, he asked, Mr. Elkson, how is the production of the flame mushroom magic potion going? The reagent is being prepared, and I believe it will soon enter the production phase. The flame mushroom is a very good magic potion, and it is not difficult to extract magic power to make a potion. Then produce it as soon as possible. In the past few days, List has stabilized in the Elite Earth Knight stage, and he has also tried to continue practicing without the help of magic potions. But it turns out that he has no talent different from ordinary people, and he will also be limited by the bottleneck of Qi, unable to increase the total amount of Qi in his body. The Elite Earth Knight, who usually can't afford magic potions, will instead begin to hone his Qi operation skills. Constantly practicing Qi operation skills can also improve strength, and through the refinement of Qi secret books, the strength will increase by more than a little. An elite Earth Knight alone against 7 or 8 ordinary Earth Knight is not a problem. As a wealthy nouveau riche, Liszt wasn't in a hurry to hone his Qi operation skills. Currently, he was proficient in 2 Qi secret books, Flame Surge Fluctuations and Fire Dragon Drill. Moreover, he was proficient in the Qi secret book Multiple Arrows. Another Qi secret skill, Magic Eye, was also at large success. Coupled with Black Dragon and the Red Blood Sword, his personal strength far exceeds that of Marcus. Among the elite Earth Knight, he is definitely the #1 figure. If you count Dosen, you may be able to deal with the Count. Should be possible. He has not seen the Sky Knight go all out, nor has he seen the power of the Sky Knight when charging on the battlefield, so he can only make an estimate. After all, the stronger ones in low-level World of Warcraft are said to be able to deal with the Sky Knight. Dosen is already at mid-level World of Warcraft, and with his violent Rock Thorns magic, he can make the Count suffer. Coupled with Liszt's cheering, "No, the battle command," it should be possible to deal with the Count. The development of the territory is on the right track. There is no need for Liszt to do anything deliberately. So, most of the time, he is looking for things to do. The young body of a 16-year-old is full of energy, and he can only find something to do by himself. He decided to inspect the progress of the production of the Calm Pearl. In the new house in Wheat Town, Glanny took the magic apprentices and lived an almost invisible life, even eating in the studio. At this point, Liszt must admit that Glanny is more dedicated than Elkson. They are both mages, but the two seem to be polar opposites. One is arrogant and paranoid, the other is humorous. Elkson is more sociable, while Glanny concentrates on his work. On the other hand, Glanny seems to be more knowledgeable? If it was a young native lord, I am afraid that Elkson's humor would be far better than Glanny's dullness. But Liszt appreciates Elkson's demeanor, but he knows how to analyze rationally. Elkson's eagle training method is very detailed, but other aspects are very vague. Especially in terms of professional knowledge, he is far less solid than Glanny. "Lord Baron, the teacher is busy. He asked you not to disturb him." Charlie, the magic apprentice, said carefully, for fear that the teacher's temper would anger Liszt. Putting away his thoughts, Liszt said, "I'm just going in to visit. I won't disturb your teacher. Take me in." Well, please keep your voice down. The teacher's work needs quiet, and he hates people disturbing his thoughts. At times like this, I have been scolded by him. They entered the inner workroom of the room. The light of the crystal lamp illuminates the workbench. Glanny has his own crystal lamp, designed like a desk lamp, which is an excellent idea. There are a lot of materials and tools on the table. There are also many stoves on the side, on which large and small pots and basins are boiling, containing various colored liquid. The strange smell is mixed, and after smelling it, it is unspeakably uncomfortable. Glanny leaned over the table, using a small carving knife to constantly carve runes on basketball-sized black pearls. His brown hair was messy like a chicken's nest, and he didn't know what was dyed on it, but it was colorful. His magic cloak was also dyed into a camouflage uniform, and his whole person had a sudden aura of an evil scientist. Completely immersed. Chapter 169. He watched quietly for a moment. Liszt didn't say a word and left Glanny's studio. He didn't understand what Glanny was doing. Take good care of your teacher and pay special attention to the bottles and cans cooking on the stove. Don't let them explode. Safety is far more important than work. Before leaving, he specifically told Charlie. He was really afraid that Glanny would suddenly make an explosion. 9 out of 10 magic research accidents were explosions in the form of various types, including, but not limited to, all kinds of violent magic that went off the rails. Why were there so few magicians in the world? Part of the reason was that magicians were secretive and did not have a large number of apprentices. Another part of the reason was that they died in various magic experiments and explorations. No matter how much a knight tormented his chi, he would at most kill or maim himself. If a magician had an explosion accident, his teacher and apprentices might die. It was not a pity for a magician to be killed. His sea-calming divine pearl had been destroyed, which was a heavy loss. This calm pearl would be allocated to the flowers. It just so happened that the flowers was about to embark on its first voyage to explore Black Horse Island. He also had another black pearl the size of a basketball and a black pearl the size of a washbasin. These two were reserved for the new ship in the future. Especially the black pearl the size of a washbasin. In the future, when he went to sea, this huge black pearl would be his standard to accompany him. An ordinary small black pearl could disperse the wind within 5 meters. The calm pearl, according to Glanny's estimation, could disperse the wind within 150 meters. But even if the wind was dispersed, the waves would continue to output, and the ship would still be in danger, but much less. The black pearl the size of a washbasin, made into a calm pearl, might be able to disperse the wind within 300 meters. In this way, even if the waves were huge, without the help of the wind, the output would be greatly reduced, and the threat to the ship would be greatly reduced. Leaving Glanny's studio, List drove his horse to the workshop area of the town, ready to inspect the 3 newly built workshops. In the soap workshop, Burnell, the soap maker, produced the soap while leading a few apprentices. The apprenticeship system was enforced by List to prohibit serfs from keeping their craft to themselves. At the same time, a qualified apprentice would receive a certain reward from the castle. With the introduction of this system, the craftsmen, workers, and apprentices were obviously more serious. Previously, he had purchased the smithy of the old blacksmith in the town. He had given the old blacksmith a few gold coins that he would never be able to earn in his entire life, hoping that the other party would be able to groom a batch of qualified blacksmith apprentices. In the end, after forging a few thousand caddies of iron, not a single apprentice managed to learn the craft of blacksmithing. This made List very angry. Blacksmiths were free people. In essence, they only needed to pay taxes and were not restricted by the Lord. However, List still found an opportunity to teach him a lesson. The taste of meat fried with a leather whip had left a deep impression on him. Now, the old blacksmith obediently taught his apprentice, wanting nothing more than to teach him. Therefore there must be carrots, and there must also be sticks. Only the carrot and the stick could carry out the Lord's will. The production of the soap is stable. The soap is limited by the pig pancreas, plus the waste in the experimental formula process, so the production is not much. Burnell reported his work progress to the visiting list. Continue to research. The current soap is almost as comfortable as perfumed soap. Perfumed soap was made from the pods of the acacia tree mixed with flowers. The cleaning effect was average, but the production cost was very expensive, especially on Coral Island, which lacked acacia trees. Only aristocrats could afford to use perfumed soap. Soap pancreas was made from a mixture of plant ash and pig pancreas. The pancreas of other animals may also be effective. The production cost was relatively low and the cleaning effect was also very good. However, it seemed that the level of soap developed by Burnell still needed to be improved. Therefore, the current soap workshop was still producing at a loss, and the production capacity was only provided to the castle and some officials and their families. At this time, Burnell suddenly said, "Sir Lord, when I was studying the soap formula, I had an idea. I wanted to mix soap and soap to see if I could make a better soap. So I tried it and found that the soap formed quickly and was very smooth, but I don't know if this is the soap you want." A soap mixed with soap? List felt that this idea was a bit wonderful. Is that so? Let me have a look at the mixed soap and bring me a basin of water. Yes, Sir Lord. Burnell quickly dispatched an apprentice to bring out a plate of light pink mixed soap. The soap was kneaded into a flat oval shape, a total of 3 pieces, and looked a bit rough. Another apprentice came over with a basin of water. List dipped his hand in the water, then applied the mixed soap and rubbed it. Suddenly, a lot of foam appeared. The mixed soap in his hand was very smooth, and its decontamination ability felt very good. Especially after washing, his hand felt very clean and had a faint fragrance. Although this was not a soap he had seen, the effect was close to what he remembered. What is the cost of making it, and what is the ratio of soap to soap? List asked. Probably 1 piece of soap can be mixed with 3 soaps to make 4 mixed soaps. But I think it may be more economical to grind the pods of the acacia tree directly into soap powder. About 1 mixed soap can reduce the cost to 40 copper coins. The cost of the soap is 1 silver coin, right? It's more than a silver coin. The soap powder I bought is too expensive. The cheapest soap cost 2 silver coins each, which was 200 copper coins. The soap powder cost 1 silver coin, and the total cost was at least 110 copper coins. If the cost of the mixed soap was reduced to 40 copper coins, it could be sold at the price of 2 silver coins, which would beat the soap on the market, even if the soap powder was not used. Buying the soap directly and making it into a mixed soap, raising the cost to 1 silver coin, was still profitable. Burnell, you did a good job. The mixed soap is better than I thought. In the future, you can slowly study the soap. The workshop will immediately start making the mixed soap. I have to give it a nice name. Do you have any suggestions? List was full of confidence in the mixed soap. The feel and the decontamination effect during washing were a grade higher than that of the soap. If a picky person like him thought it was good, the other nobles would definitely slap the table and applaud. The nobles were very willing to spend money on items that improved the quality of life. Sir Lord, under your guidance, I was able to develop the mixed soap. You should give it a name, Burnell said respectfully. As people get older, they gradually become artistic in their speech. List was very satisfied with Burnell's reaction. Then, let's call it flower soap. I will make it a specialty of Flower Town. Burnell, and the apprentices around you, be sure to keep the formula of the flower soap strictly confidential. Please rest assured, Sir Lord. Do a good job. I have rewards for any invention that can bring benefit. Although the soap has not been developed, the flower soap is barely qualified. Burnell, reward you with 10 silver coins and your apprentices with 20 copper coins each. Thank you, Sir Lord. Burnell took the apprentices and thanked him. List was also very happy. The flower soap could not bring as much revenue as the seafood business, but it was still very sure that it could squeeze out the current soap market and even sell to the outer islands. Chapter 170. The soap workshop was about to bring in good profit. The peanut processing workshop was also about to bring in good profit. Among the newly purchased serfs, several cooks were arranged to study delicious peanut. At present, they had already developed peanut butter, peanut crisp, salt and pepper peanuts, and fried peanut. A small batch was handed over to the Thorns caravan for sale. The response was very good. Many aristocrats who tasted the delicious peanuts expressed that they would buy them in large quantities next time. The Flower Town's peanut production was insufficient, and there was also a shortage of workers. The head of the peanut processing workshop, the cook Lucas, had already entrusted the Thorns caravan to purchase peeled peanuts from the North Valley City. Well done. List only gave a verbal praise and then left. The peanut processing workshop was his idea. These people were just executors and had no creativity. He liked to use gold coins, silver coins, and copper coins to encourage creativity, discovery, and role models, rather than encouraging hard work, because the serfs were supposed to work hard in the first place. The last stop was the distillery. Frank Distillers brewed fruit wine, Berdang brewed rice wine, and Huntella brewed beer. They were all making the best use of their time to brew wine as soon as possible to earn income for the distillery. However, no one in the distillery knew how to brew liquor, and similarly, no one knew how to brew wine. There was no difference between ordinary wine and fruit wine. However, fine wine required high craftsmanship, and the selection of grapes was very meticulous. Dry, semi-dry, sweet, and semi-sweet varieties of wine had different technique. On the Coral Island, only Tulip Castle had mastered the technique of brewing sweet wine. Crescent wine, sweet and cold, was famous in the Grand Duchy. The red wine from the Raisy Manor cellar, that Liszt had drunk in the Longtaro Castle, was the best among dry wines. These techniques were all secret techniques that were exclusively mastered by the greater aristocrat. The same was true for liquor. As a distilled liquor, the brewing process of liquor was more complicated and was monopolized by the greater aristocrats. Liquor such as gin might not even be available in ordinary times. Therefore, the Flower Town's distillery could only brew some simple fermented liquor. After inspecting the distillery, Liszt began to ponder. If I remember correctly, distilled liquor has an additional process compared to fermented liquor. It seems that alcohol and water have different vaporization temperatures to purify alcohol. Repeated distillation can produce high spirit. Because he didn't like to drink, he didn't know much about wine. He had read a lot of novels in the past, and most of them mentioned distilled spirit. It looked quite simple, so he had a vague impression of it. Perhaps I can let the winery study distillation technology. Maybe we can brew liquor and increase the specialty of Flower Town. Rice wine is made from fermented grains. Liquor was essentially brewed from grains. Liszt thought that if he further distilled the rice wine, would he be able to obtain white wine? So he called the 3 brewers over. I'll give you a mission. Remember, this mission is highly confidential. If anyone leaks it, their entire family will be whipped to death. The 3 brewers tensed up and replied, "We swear to keep the mission a secret." Very well, I got a formula. It is said that liquor is obtained through the distillation of rice wine. By heating the rice wine, turning it into steam, and then introducing the steam into other places to cool it down and turn it into water, the water in the rice wine can be removed. In the end, what is left is liquor. You should explore a few more times and strive to brew Flower Town's liquor. The 3 winemakers were confused by his words. But he still simply replied, "Please rest assured, Sir Lord. We will brew the liquor as soon as possible." The task was assigned. Liszt felt that another specialty of Flower Town was waving to him. He even thought of a name at this moment. It's called flower wine. Well, it's graded. Flower wine with low degrees can be called 5 years of aging. Flower wine with high degrees can be called 10 years of aging, 20 years of aging, and even 100 years of aging, or 500 years of aging. Suddenly, it occurred to him that the Grand Duchy of Sapphire only had a history of more than 150 years. Before that, there were only monkeys on the island. Forget about 500 years of aging. Let's just say that in the year of the founding of the country, a winemaker came to Coral Island and personally brewed a jar of wine. There's only 1 jar, but we can make 1 jar every year. Just like an 82-year-old Lafite, no matter how many years we drink it, we can never finish it. Thinking of liquor sales, many classic cases immediately popped up in his mind. But he also discovered the risk. Liquor is a profiteering industry. Without a strong backing, it is difficult to guarantee. I must cooperate with Tulip Castle. With the banner of Tulip Castle, business would be good. As an Earl of the Grand Duke, Lee William Tulip was definitely one of the top figures in the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Moreover, he also served as the Grand Duke's groom and would have close contact with the Grand Duke every year. If he wanted to pull the banner, he must share the profits with Tulip Castle. Liszt didn't mind. The more he integrated into the world, the more he knew the importance of aristocratic connections. Levis, Olvera, and even Lytton, no matter how scheming they were, they were still relative. They were people who could help in times of crisis. The Viscount of the small Kerchief Island was destroyed. The Viscount of the big Kerchief Island, which had been separated, was still running around, investigating and urging the Grand Duke to find the murderer. Liszt certainly hoped that the Tulip family could grow and become a towering tree that could shelter them from the wind and rain. Black Dragon walked steadily, with almost no rise and fall. Liszt was able to think very well on horseback. His thoughts jumped around, and then he thought of the distribution of profits. Then he thought of another idea. Speaking of monkeys, maybe I can promote the monkey wine? The existence of the monkey wine was not important. What was important was the gimmick. Aristocrats liked to be extravagant. Extravagance did not only include wearing gold and silver, gems, and famous horses, but also included the arts and the pursuit of rare things. Monkey wine was obviously a rare thing. However, aristocrats with deep foundations are too few. They are all nouveau riche who have been rich for 3 or 4 generations. Including the Tulip family, they have only made their fortune in recent generations. They might not necessarily have much interest in things like monkey wine. They should be more interested in gems and gold coins. In any case, when selling the fruit wine, he could first hype it up. Subsequently, Liszt inspected several other shops and workshops. At present, in the flower town, there were only 3 shops in the commercial district: a bakery, a grocery store, and a barber shop. In the workshop district, there were only a blacksmith shop, a leathersmith shop, a locksmith shop, and a tailor shop, as well as the newly built wine-making workshop, soap workshop, and peanut processing workshop. Many of the wooden houses that had been built were empty. If it were not for the many serfs paving roads, building houses, and planting grass, the flower town would look like a ghost village. 476 serfs joined and were assigned to the various settlements to farm. They did not cause much of a stir. Most of the more than 100 craftsmen who had high hopes were workers who did not have the ability to support a shop or workshop independently. For the time being, they could only follow along in farming and waste their skills. In the short term, the commercial district can only be used as a trading market to receive occasional caravans. He looked at the empty houses and sighed with emotion. First, the workshop area has to be vigorously developed into a production and processing center. Only then can the development of the commercial district be driven. Liszt pointed to the commercial district. He wanted to gesture how to build here and how to build here, but when he turned his head, he saw only the serving man Thomas and a few retainer knight following behind him. They were all vulgar people. For a moment, his ambition to achieve great things was stifled. Chapter 171. Secretary. Liszt was very disappointed. He did not have a secretary. There was no way to realize the shameless and impatient life of the rich and powerful, where the secretary would do whatever she wanted, and the secretary would do whatever she wanted when she had nothing to do. In fact, he did not even have a personal maid. The social system of monogamy was strictly enforced. Even if the aristocrats had lovers everywhere and illegitimate children, they still followed this system. This was not the official system. This was the custom of society. In order to ensure the continuation of monogamy, female aristocrats could only have a personal maid, and male aristocrats could only have a personal male servant. This was to prevent the destruction of monogamy in the name of a personal servant. He had investigated the formation of this custom and finally speculated that it probably originated from the queen system of the Moon Empire. This long-disappeared empire was like the ancient Roman Empire in Europe. Although the Roman Empire was destroyed by the barbarians, its cultural system deeply influenced the entire European continent. The same was true for the Moon Empire. As the strongest empire at that time, its cultural influence still existed. At present, most countries had more or less absorbed the language of the moon. including the hierarchy of knight, the relationship between lord and vassal, all originated from the Moon Empire. The queen system was also preserved. In many countries there were once women who were kings. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire did not have a queen, but the monogamy system was inherited. The Moon Empire. I wonder what the situation is like. As the lord of a small town, Liszt had more leisure time. He liked to read knight novels and heard about the Moon Empire countless times. The knight would always find the ruins of the Moon Empire in a certain place and obtain treasures. They would immediately become powerful and fight against the heavens and the earth, because there was no habit of recording history. Most of the information about the Moon Empire was passed down by word of mouth. This kind of information transmission was distorted as high as 99%. Therefore, the Moon Empire became a legendary empire, countless beautiful and incomparably prosperous. Just like the ancient Greece of the Europeans and the ancient kings of Confucius, all kinds of beautification and all kinds of embellishments replaced the truth and became the official history in people's minds. It's annoying not to have history books. I'm really afraid that I will read too many knight novels and take the nonsense as a messenger. Liszt shook his head. He did not want to think about these nonsense things anymore. Other than satisfying his curiosity, he studied history because he wanted to learn about politics and tactics through history. He wanted to talk about the general trend of the world, but he decided not to bother with the nonsense of history. He returned to the regret of not having a secretary. He felt that he had to speed up the training of a group of female retainer knights to be his personal bodyguards. Otherwise, there would be no atmosphere and passion when he gave speeches and gave pointers. After inspecting the town's buildings, Zhang Xian returned to the castle. He went straight to the study, took out a thick bast paper and a quill, and prepared to sort out his plans for the flower town. If the flower town is to be built into an economy that mainly focuses on the primary processing of agricultural products, then the current layout of the town will have to be replanned and the trade routes will have to be modified. Land transportation conditions are far inferior to sea transportation. Sailing directly from the sea to Coral City would save more transportation capacity. He first drew a rough map of the Coral Island. In the study of the Count in Tulip Castle, a map of the Coral Island was hung on the wall. The whole island was in the shape of a distorted 8. The northeast corner was the flower town. The narrow part in the middle of the 8 was the deep-water port. The Coral City was built next to the deep-water port. Limited by the terrain, it was impossible to travel in a straight line from the flower town to the Coral City. In the middle, one would have to pass through the North Valley City and the Yulin City in the shape of a Z, which would waste a lot of time. The geographical location of the flower town is remote. The wharf must be built quickly and the sea can be opened. Land transportation can be supplemented by building a checkpoint at the entrance to the Thorns Ridge. In this way, the flower town's main area will be divided into 3 parts: the wharf, the town, and the Thorns Ridge, which will respectively undertake trade and processing tasks. He wrote a few serpentines in the workshop area of the town. They were all workshops planned to be built: sugar workshop, spice workshop, textile workshop, leather workshop, paper workshop, tofu workshop, tulip workshop, as well as shoe shops, bone shops, and so on. At the wharf, he also wrote the planned workshops: a brick factory, cement factory, pottery kiln factory, salt factory, glass workshop, and so on. Near the Thorns Ridge checkpoint, there were also planned workshops: carpentry workshop, slaughterhouse, horse market, and so on. Some of these workshops did not have enough craftsmen to support them, and some had technology to be developed. But in Liszt's vision, these should be achievable through hard work. But soon, he lost interest in writing again. Costo has reported that the flowers are ready to go to sea at any time. Now we only need to wait for Glanny to build the calm pearl, and then we can explore Black Horse Island. Once Black Horse Island was seized, his future strategy would focus on Black Horse Island. The importance of Flower Town would undoubtedly drop a lot, especially when he achieved military merits and turned Black Horse Island into his own fief. He would definitely hand it over to Flower Town. Just like the Tulip family gave up their original fief and moved to the Coral Island, taking root in the new territory. When I have enough financial and material resources to solve the technical problems of paper, cement, tofu, glass, and so on, I am afraid I will already be a Viscount of Black Horse Island. Thorn sprites could be born at any time. Once there were sprites, they could generate a steady stream of financial resources. It would not be difficult to arm a night squad. At that time, it would not be difficult to charge on the battlefield and make contributions. The Grass family and the Gravel family were awarded the title of Viscount by virtue of their respective sprites. As the son of the Count, as long as he made contributions, there was no reason for the Count not to grant his son the title of Viscount. At that time, Black Horse Island could be designated as his own fief. The aristocrats could exchange credit for deserted islands. In case of great contributions on the battlefield, it would not be impossible for the Grand Duke to directly enfeoff the island. Becoming a direct vassal of the Grand Duke was more dazzling than being a marquis or an earl's vassal, and his promotion in the future would be faster. Rulers always liked to promote new aristocrats to check and balance the old aristocrats. But once I become a vassal of the Grand Duke, I will have to be independent from the Tulip family. Will I be the Viscount of Black Horse Island, List Thorn? Of course, this possibility was relatively small. He was just a baron. How much contribution could he make to be valued by the Grand Duke? Moreover, he was a vassal of the Count. The Grand Duke generally would not cross the line and win over the vassals of his subordinates. In particular, the Count had a good relationship with the Grand Duke, so he would not be casually roped in. Anyway, Black Horse Island is mine. The Black Dragon horse herd must not be touched by anyone. If he wanted Black Horse Island, he had to make contributions and get the title. List put down his quill and looked out of the window. In the distance, several horses were leisurely eating grass. People will die on the battlefield. At that time, I will see if I can find the same position as Levis, act as a liaison, do logistics, and get some merit. He paused. He calmly said to himself, "But the night squad must be trained as soon as possible, my own chi cultivation must also be accelerated, and Dosen's training must also be strengthened." Chapter 172. When he first came to this world, List felt that he had to keep a low profile and settle down as a baron in the countryside. With the improvement of the quality of life, the class position has rebelled. He began to cluster around the aristocratic knight system, but he was unwilling to go to the battlefield and just wanted to develop. Now, Flower Town has been developing at a high speed, and the Thorn Sprite is about to be born. His thoughts have changed again. The impulse for glory and the desire for his own island have deepened step by step. The idea of not going to the battlefield has also been replaced by going to the battlefield, doing logistics, and getting achievements. He became like a real aristocrat. He was swallowed up by the world, or rather, he actively integrated into the world, into the knight system. Some people are proletarian fighters who have devoted their lives to the liberation of all mankind. I admire such people, but I will never imitate them. List's mind is still clear. Integrating into the world is not passive, but the result of his initiative. My goal in life is to ride a dragon, to become my own master. He wants to be a king, not a vassal. With the existence of smoke missions, modern knowledge in his mind, and the social system still exists. This gives him enough confidence to achieve the big goal of life. Walking to the window, Blessed Curls, who liked to squawk on the windowsill, was no longer there. There was a flash of nostalgia in his eyes, but it was gone in an instant. Then he looked into the distance. Just as Blessed Curls does not want to be a pet, he does not want to be a servant, even to the king. He can accept being corrupted by aristocratic life, but he does not allow his knees to kneel to anyone except his parents. The road is tortuous, but the future is bright. First, set a small goal for myself, to find a secretary, to become a viscount. The knight system of this world has a medieval style, the core of which revolves around lords, vassals, and land. Although social customs, cultural production, and the European Middle Ages on Earth, there is a huge gap. Productivity revolves around dragons and sprites, which is also different from Earth's productivity. But in essence, it is a form of feudal serfdom in the European Middle Ages. It was an economic system established by feudal lords in their territories to exploit and enslave serfs, and it was a very cruel exploitation. Serfs and free people had almost no means of production, because the real means of production were dragons and elves, but both of them were firmly monopolized by the nobles. This kind of system was very exploitative. However, compared to the dark Middle Ages established by the barbarians on the corpse of the Roman Empire and the serfdom of Western Tibet with the legend of Sister Drum, the feudal serfdom of this world was much milder. At least the serfs and commoners still had a way to rise. Combat aura was like the ancient imperial examinations in China. Most people couldn't afford to take the imperial examinations, but there were always a few commoners who could change their fate by taking the imperial examinations. Most people in this world didn't have enough to eat and didn't have the extra nutrients to train in combat aura. However, there would always be lords who would choose commoners with good physical qualities to train. With battle aura and several generations of accumulation, it was not difficult to cultivate an Earth Knight. After a few more generations of hard work and more opportunities, they would be able to fight for the position of nobility. The Tulip family followed this path of prosperity. Judging from their surnames, the ancestors with the surname Tile were probably either freemen or serfs. In any case, they had nothing to do with nobles. His great-great-grandfather was born with divine strength. He was selected by the aristocracy and trained as a retainer knight, serving the newly founded Sapphire family. After several meritorious deeds in several wars, he was conferred the title of Lord Knight, which allowed him to enter the aristocratic class. Since then, there were several more generations of hard work. In the generation of his great-grandfather, he became a baron. In the generation of his great-grandfather, he became a viscount, and finally, in the generation of Lee William, he became a count of the Sapphire Grand Duke. The surname was also changed to the noble Tulip. However, it is said that it depends on the accumulation of generations, but in essence, it still depends on mutation. The so-called rich rely on technology, the poor rely on mutation. The mysterious existence of battle aura needs the accumulation of nutrients. If you want to become stronger without nutrients, you can only rely on physical mutation. For example, the Tulip family's great-great-grandfather was born with divine strength, which is a kind of mutation, probably because of his greater strength, which was far-fetched by later generations. Now I no longer need to rely on mutation, I can rely directly on technology. Technology is nutrition and technology is magic. Arriving at the flame mushroom processing workshop, Liz saw the magician smoking. "Mr. Elkson, has my flame mushroom magic potion been made?" "Sorry, not yet, but I will be able to finish them soon. It won't take long," Elkson replied. Smoking leisurely instead of working made Liszt a little dissatisfied, but he did not show it. "Is there a finished magic potion? Give it to me first." "Yes." He quickly brought out a large box, and inside the box was a magic potion wrapped in strips of cloth. Liszt opened the cloth strip of a magic potion, revealing a thumb-long, pinky-thin crystal tube, which contained a light red viscous liquid. Such a small one can be sold for at least 1 gold coin. Baron Liszt, you can taste its effect. Although I am not the magician designated by Tulip Castle to make magic potions, I am still confident in my skills. Elksun flicked his cigarette ash and said proudly. List nodded. Opening the cork of the crystal tube, he used the magic eye to observe for a moment, then looked up and drank the magic potion inside. The potion, like jelly, poured directly into his mouth, without a drop left. It melted in his mouth. Immediately after, he felt a flame-like magic rising from his stomach, rushing to his limbs and bones. The whole process lasted for 3 minutes before it gradually calmed down. List's eyes lit up, and he felt that his total amount of chi, which had not been improved for a long time, had soared a lot. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Very enjoyable! I am glad you are satisfied, Mr. Elksun, then I will not disturb your work. If you need anything, just say it and I will try my best to meet it." List finished, took a box of magic potions, and returned to the castle. From today on, the road to the potion pot officially opened. 1 day later, Marcus, who had been on a business trip for several days, finally returned to Flower Town. He brought the news that List was most concerned about. "My lord, fortunately I did not fail. How is it? Where are the new varieties of thorns? I have contacted Tulip Castle and Gravel Castle, but no new varieties of thorns have been found. Only Beer Castle on Beer Island has a new variety of thorns. Viscount Trick said that he welcomes you to Beer Castle at any time, and Sir Aubrey asked me to bring you a letter. Aubrey is Trick's son and the heir to Beer Castle. He has a good relationship with List because of the seafood business." Hearing that there was a new variety of thorns on Beer Island, List breathed a long sigh of relief. "So, I need to take the thorns worm to Beer Island?" Marcus replied, "Of course you can go, but you can also not go. I have brought back the new variety of thorns, which can be planted directly in Flower Town." List was very pleased with such a thoughtful move. This is a qualified subordinate who knows how to share the worries of his leader. Is that so? Hurry up and plant it. The thorns worm is almost halfway through the pupa period, and it urgently needs to be assimilated. After a while. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.